Afternoon everybody, welcome to Solo ReacTalk. This afternoon I'm going to be reacting to a video requested by your J6D. It's called The First Space Marine, the Emperor's True Son, who defied 4 Chaos Gods, made on the Sandman of Terra YouTube channel. This is going to be the first time I react to a Sandman of Terra YouTube channel video. So welcome to Solo ReacTalk. This title, The First Space Marine, the Emperor's True Son. The Emperor's True Son. That's a bit controversial right there. I mean, but yeah, okay. Remember guys, if you want to check out my previous reaction to other Warhammer 40k content created by YouTubers, the reaction playlist is going to be at the top right here. If you want to check out the original video as well as Sandman of Terra YouTube channel, the links are going to be in the description below. Okay, let's start. 3, 2, 1, go.
So, what legion were you?
No legion.
Never assigned?
Never anything.
Right, sure, but which bloodline? Which Primarch was your gene sire?
My father was Neoth. My mother was Urda. I was one of the first.
Wow, okay, so your mother was Urda and your father was Neoth, and you know there's no mixture of chaos energy inside you like the Primarchs. Alright, interesting. Yeah, no, you might actually be the truest son of the Emperor and Urda. However, the custodians are also, you could say, sons of the Emperor. So you have a bit of a competition there. The Primarchs also, their mother is Urda, their father is Neoth, and their other parents are the Chaos Gods. But yeah, you are more closely tight-knit to the two most important people, Urda and Neoth. Yeah. Okay.
The first reference to the Horus Heresy was in 1988. The story goes that Games Workshop were designing a new board game, Adeptus Titanicus, but they only had enough money to design and create one army, so they just called it a civil war and wrote some lore to support it. This lore was later expanded upon ever so slightly. Today we have a 64 book series along with a wealth of other literature.
When am I ever gonna get around to reading all of these 64 books, and then there's still more literature related to Warhammer 40k? Oh gosh.
Covering the conflict. And this is pretty common for Warhammer 40k. There are many ways, in fact, where the lore was influenced by things that happened in the games or even just the models. My favourite example of this is definitely this guy, the first Imperial Space Marine, LEETU, released in 1985 as part of a limited edition line.
LE2. Okay.
This Space Marine is technically older than the first edition of Warhammer 40k. What a fantastic piece of trivia for your next Warhammer themed pub quiz, and the author Dan Abnett clearly thought it was interesting because he decided to take this Space Marine and introduce him as a character in the Siege of Terra. Of course, he couldn't just call him the Imperial Space Marine, so he just called him LE2, and he is usually
Limited edition 2, LE2. Ah, okay, wow. That's nice. Edition 2, LE2. Okay.
referred to as LEETU in the
LEETU. Huh. I have never heard of this character before in Warhammer 40k. Or maybe someone has told me about him in the comment section, but honestly, from what I've been hearing about the Great Crusade, about the Horus Heresy, about what's happening in the 42nd millennium, you know, currently, I haven't heard anything related to this character. So yeah, even during the unification of Terra and the beginnings of the Imperium of Man, I haven't heard anything about this particular character. because after the Thunder Warriors came the Astartes that replaced them, and I don't remember LEETU, contributing in that fight to wipe out the Thunder Warriors with the Custodians and the Astartes that were tasked to do the job. So, yeah, interesting.
Novels. And this is where things get really crazy in my opinion. Because right now, I bet you're thinking, oh, that's nice. What a lovely little nugget of lore that Dan Abnett put into a book, a fun in-universe reference to a really old Warhammer model. But here's the thing, this Space Marine is now one of the most important characters within the entire Warhammer 40k setting. He is a Space Marine without a Primarch. His father was the Emperor, but he stood against his father, and then Horus Lupercal, and then all 4 Chaos Gods. And he survived. Today, we're going to go through his story. LEETU may not have a Primarch, but he does have a mother. Erda was a perpetual, an immortal, nigh unkillable. Her psychic abilities were perhaps unmatched by any of her kin, save one, the Emperor of Mankind.
Does LEETU have any psychic abilities? Or is he just like a regular Space Marine?
But she has known him since long before he took that title. She knew him by the name Neoth. They met in the time of the First Cities, when he was but a warlord. Like so many of their kind, he had taken upon himself the stewardship of the human race, guiding its destiny. They worked together for millennia. It wasn't just her genius in genetics that made her an indispensable ally, for she was part of the foundation upon which some of his greatest plans would spring forth. The Master of Mankind needed 20 sons, 20 Primarchs, each one to lead a Space Marine legion, and to craft his demigods, he needed a gene stock rare enough to mix with his own.
Neoth and Erda sitting in a tree. Kissing. First comes love, then comes marriage, then comes LEETU in a baby carriage.
So as the Emperor is the father of the Primarchs, Erda is their mother. However, before the Master of Mankind could bring his vision of the Space Marine legions to life, he needed a prototype, a template. This was not just about creating a powerful warrior, but about achieving genetic stability, something the Space Marines' precursors, the Thunder Warriors, were lacking. So, working alongside Erda and a team of scientists, the Emperor created LEETU. The exact number of Proto-Space Marines remains unclear in the lore. The serial code LEETU suggests there may have been at least one other, and LEETU does mention that he was one of the first, but he never speaks of any brothers, and the Emperor refers to LEETU as the baseline prototype.
That means the first version was a failure, probably didn't even get out of its, medical table or whatever. Yeah, like the gene seed inside was rejected or the body exploded, so it was a failure. But LE2 has succeeded, and thus it is becoming the first proto Astartes. Yeah.
As he was created before the gene stocks of the Primarchs were spliced in, LEETU hails from no legion, but instead regards the Emperor as his father and Erda as his mother. By the time of the Primarch's creation, a mighty rift was forming between his parents. Erda had felt uncertain about their work for a while. The Emperor's power had grown massively over the millennia, but so too had his arrogance. He had begun to cut corners. All the Perpetuals, save her and Malkador, had abandoned him by this point, and despite losing this group of immortals, a group he had fought so hard to gather over the millennia, the Emperor was now glad to see the back of them.
Yeah, well, the Emperor wants a lot of yes men in his government. He doesn't want people to challenge him. He doesn't want people to question, his logic on many things. He wants yes men, because in his mind he believes that he's right, that he knows all the answers, and he sees into the future, all possible futures. So to him, he is already, correct, because he has all of this vast amount of information. And we've also been told that he's on a timeline, that he is rushing against the clock. He has to conquer the galaxy in less than 300 years. He has to make sure that he has an army that is able to conquer the galaxy in less than 300 years. And also to find or to make the Primarchs, and for them to continue the conquest in completion in less than 300 years.
He grew tired of their objections, wary of their caution. He wanted results. Nevertheless, Erda had stayed up until her sons were created, but then she discovered the full scope of the Emperor's plans. She was allowed no influence over her sons' development, for the Emperor had prepared their destiny.
Yeah, the Emperor has taken custody over the children, but Erda will make a deal for the children to be abducted. Well, not really abducted, but she sent them into the warp.
Through his sons, he would force the human race into the future, force it into submission, and defy the warp to do it. He had built perpetual analogues and weaponized them, ready to resist the unbending cosmos. He was planning a crusade to retake the stars, to claim back in a bloody century or two what had taken millennia to lose in the first place. Erda stepped away, heartbroken, but not before one terrible act of defiance. According to Erda, she created the warp vortex that scattered her sons across the galaxy. Despite believing she was sparing them, in this way she contributed to the calamity that befell her kind. Fearing the Emperor's wrath, she went into hiding, but she didn't go alone. LEETU went with her, sworn to protect her. He guarded her for centuries, waiting for the pursuers that they were certain were coming after them. To protect his mother, this lone space marine was willing to take on the new space marine recruits, the custodians, or even the Emperor himself.
Wow, okay. You're willing to take on the custodians and the Emperor? Okay, LEETU.
Should he come for his vengeance? However, none ever came, and eventually LEETU and Erda realized they were safe from the Emperor's wrath. No one knows why he spared them, but he had moved on, and the Great Crusade was well underway.
Yeah, if the Emperor really wanted you guys dead, he would have sent Constantine Valdor, as the left hand of the Emperor. He would have sent his most powerful and trusted warrior to deal with this matter. But Constantine Valdor was not sent, so yeah. And besides, we know who killed Erda. It was the hand of destiny. It was the hand of destiny. So where was LEETU when the hand of destiny was, fighting against Erda? Where was he?
The Emperor did indeed claim the stars, and one by one he found all of his sons. Meanwhile, Erda and her legionary would eventually settle back on Terra, but away from the Imperial Palace, in Mauritania, located in the Panafric northwest, near to the place of Erda's birth. Whilst LEETU did not take part in his father's Great Crusade, he is not inexperienced. He would act as his mother's guardian on her journeys, and on one such venture, LEETU even had the privilege to witness the beauty of Eldari dances.
So LEETU and Erda were traveling the galaxy, as tourists. They were going to exotic places, meeting, exotic aliens and watching their performances, while the galaxy was being set alight by the Emperor as he continued his conquest across the galaxy. Very interesting.
As history well knows, the Great Crusade was not to last, and eventually the galaxy burned in the Horus Heresy.
Let the galaxy burn.
The heresy culminated in the Siege of Terra, and the forces of Warmaster Horus Lupercal, traitorous son of the Emperor, now assaulted the birthworld of humanity, and it was as her sons inflicted their horrors upon her planet.
Too bad Erda didn't come out of the shadows and, tell the loyalists and as well as the traitor Primarchs that I am your mother and I'm telling you all to stop. I wonder, would it work? Would she succeed where the Emperor has failed in terms of trying to get, his sons away from chaos? I wonder, but maybe not. When I think about Angron and how he has transformed into that demon Primarch, I don't see any way Erda can bring him back from that type of situation. Yeah.
That Erda received an unexpected visitor, John Grammaticus.
John Grammaticus. Okay.
John was a powerful human psyker who had, for a time, served the enigmatic Xenos Cabal, and he had been gifted with the abilities of a perpetual. But his loyalty to the Xenos had now been spent, as had their gift to him. There would be no coming back the next time John died. Grammaticus came to Terra with the aim of meeting a Lanius person. All wasn't just a perpetual.
A Lanius person, okay. And he's a perpetual.
He was the oldest of them all. He had served
Older than the Emperor? Wow.
as one of the Emperor's closest allies in the distant past, the first Warmaster. Yet, like so many others, he too became disillusioned with the Emperor's vision of the future. Ol had betrayed and then turned his back on his old friend. John and Ol had agreed to rendezvous on Terra, but when no trace of Ol was
Rendezvous on Terra when there is a civil war happening. Oh, okay. Wow.
found, John feared the worst. Growing desperate, he sought aid from Erda, hoping she could guide him in these dangerous times. As he approached her home, however, he suddenly felt the cold, heavy barrel of an ancient bolt pistol pressed against the back of his neck. It was being aimed at him by a figure in plate armor, Legiones Astartes plate, and the figure wearing it was Astartes big and Astartes bred. But the armor was colorless and unmarked, not even the bare grey of the Knights Errant. It was pale, a sheen silver finish, like a lead ingot. LEETU's armor is marked with a small stamp strip, LEETU.
Is LEETU... Does he have like a beak mask? Because I keep seeing this, artist rendition with LEETU having, or should I say, I don't know if it's like any other Astartes probably, but yeah, it looks like LEETU has a beak mask. Was he one of the first to have the beak mask or what? Because he's the first Space Marine. It's kind of cute.
Etched just below the breastline. Both LEETU and his pistol had a patina of age about them that was impossible to fake. John realized this Space Marine was clearly very old. So old, his weapon was an M676 Union model, pre-Phobos.
Okay.
Mark 0. Made before even Mars had joined the Imperium, and it had been given to LEETU when new. The Astarte looked at John with a stern demeanor and piercing blue eyes. "Why have you come?"
To stop it all.
"Horus? You can't."
Of course I can't. He's bloody Horus. No one can.
Then who are you here to stop?
I'm here to stop him. Because he's the only one who can end this abomination.
Him? The Emperor?
"That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. even coming from a man who spent his life making stupid decisions. How do you propose to stop him?
That is why I need her help.
LEETU allowed John to petition Erda. She agreed to help him and consulted various methods: the sun, the stars, the tarot cards, the red thread, and the black mirrors. They all agreed Elenia's person was not lost in space, but in time, 2 weeks away from where they were now.
Okay, lost in time. What, is he traveling in through the warp? But I don't understand. What is John Chromaticus going to do exactly? How is he going to stop the Emperor? And why is he stopping the Emperor? I don't understand.
In addition to gifting John this knowledge, Erda also gave John LEETU to now act as his protector and help him find All-Person.
And this is how the Hand of Destiny had the perfect opportunity to corner Erda and, fight her one-on-one and defeat her, because LEETU was not here. LEETU was sent away by Erda. Okay.
Before leaving, however, LEETU made his mother one final promise. He will do whatever he can to save his father and prevent the triumph of ruin. LEETU and John searched for Elenius, eventually finding him and a group of Kauth survivors being harvested by the Emperor's Children Legion. Ol and his comrades were freed, and they joined forces with two new figures: a blind yet powerful psyker named Acte, and another space marine, a space marine who identified himself as Alfarius, and who claimed to know of a
Well. You guys better watch your back with this one.
secret way into the Imperial Palace. These companions, the Argonauts as John names them, journeyed into the heart of the Imperium, the Sanctum Imperialis. Their goal: to confront the Emperor of Mankind, to discuss with him the course, purpose, and meaning of this terrible galaxy-spanning conflict.
That's what they're gonna do? They're going to discuss about the status of the galaxy as we know. Is it not obvious that Horus Rubrical is, commencing a civil war against the Imperium of Man? That he is being influenced by chaos? I mean, I don't understand. Discuss what? No, guys. No. What are you discussing? This is a waste of time. I want you guys to go onto the battlefield and fight. Stop wasting time asking the Emperor stupid questions. No. This is not it. I thought you were gonna give him some sort of super weapon to help him against the Primarchs. Somehow do something else other than asking him to discuss with you. He doesn't have the time to discuss. The man is in the golden chair. Golden chair. Oh my gosh. He's on the golden throne. He's focusing, making sure that the webway does not rupture and the demons pour through onto Terra. He's focusing on many other things, making sure that his son Rogel Dawn and his custodian Constantine Valdor do not get to each other's throats and start fighting against each other. That they work together. He's doing a lot of things, but you guys want to discuss?
On the way, the space marine called Alfarius was revealed to be Ingopek, the first captain of the Alpha Legion.
Yeah, I don't believe you.
Grammaticus neutralized
because it's Alfarius.
him with a motion-sensitive mind after discovering he was actually under the witch's control, and they were unsure of Acte's intentions. Although Acte would confirm she was not working against them and had in fact been sent by Erda, they could do nothing for Peck. barely able to move, he was left behind under the Imperial Palace. Nevertheless, the rest of the group pressed on, and as they neared their goal, they were found by a warrior of the Legio Custodes and Vulcan, the Primarch of the Salamanders.
Wow, that was quick.
The Argonauts were escorted to the throne room, but upon arriving, they discovered that they were too late. The Emperor was not there. Malcador the Sigillite sat the Golden Throne, and the Master of Mankind had left to face his son, along with the Primarch Rogaldorn, the Primarch Sanguinius, the Captain General of the Custodians, Constantine Valdor, and a host of other heroes. This is known as the Anabasis Assault, when Horus Lupercal lowered the shields on his flagship, the Vengeful Spirit, in order to goad his father into coming to face him.
It worked.
The Lord of Terra took the bait. With the Master of Mankind absent and Malcador on the Golden Throne, Vulcan was now the ultimate authority on Terra. In a way, Vulcan is something akin to a brother for the Proto-Marine, and LEETU treats his relative with great reverence, for Erda deeply loved all her sons.
Yeah, she loves her sons like how the Emperor loves his sons, you know, very cold, very distant. She's not in their lives whatsoever, but she claims to love them. And the Emperor, yeah, he also says, I love my children, I love my sons, nyeh, nyeh, nyeh. But he's only there when he needs them. He's not there when they need him. You know? So, yeah, their love is very different. The Emperor and Erda. The way they show love to their children is just different.
LEETU learned many skills from his mother, including how to read the Imperial Tarot cards, and he even had his own set gifted to him by Erda. The tarot cards are psychoactive crystal wafers rumoured to have been originally crafted by the Emperor himself, and thereby they are imbued with a fragment of his power. If you know how to read them, theoretically, they can be used to divine futures. When the Argonauts were escorted to the throne room, many of their possessions were confiscated, including LEETU's cards, and when Vulcan goes through LEETU's deck, he finds a card that should not be there. The card of the Dark King. That card was not part of my deck. I have owned those cards for years. They were a gift from my mistress.
The Dark King. I've heard of that word or term before.
And I know every one of them, front and back. I have never seen that card before. It was not in my deck when I came to this place. Whilst LEETU is not familiar with the card, Vulcan has heard the name the Dark King before. Signs of it have been seen across Terra.
Oh, signs of it have been seen. Okay. So what, is the Dark King some sort of entity? Because I think that the Dark King belongs to the Warp, if I'm not mistaken, right?
The Dark King is a terrible prophesized warp guard, whose birth fire will drive the Immaterium to madness. The group realize that this must be the aim of Horus Lupercal, to ascend to godhood, to become a god of ruin, and humanity will burn in his fire.
So he will become the Dark King. That's his main plan. Alright.
Despite the gravity of this revelation, the Argonauts have failed. The Emperor of Mankind was not present to hear their message.
I've still yet to understand what is your message, Argonaut group or team. What is your message?
Had their chance, and now it's gone. They are led away, flanked by the terrifying Sentinel Giants and the distressing Sisters of Silence.
You know what? I just thought about it right now. Why didn't the Emperor take the Sisters of Silence with him when he boarded the Vengeful Spirit? he would need people like this, people who can nullify Psyker, energy. Especially when they came aboard the Vengeful Spirit with the vessel, contorting and changing, and there was warp influence around that vessel. The Sisters of Silence would have been perfectly situated for something like this. They could have dispelled any notion of warp influence aboard that vessel. It would have been much more easier for everybody to go through the vessel until they would find Horus Rupercal. And Horus Rupercal wouldn't be able to use his warp abilities because the Sisters of Silence are there to nullify it. Why didn't the Emperor take them along? With the Custodians, with the Primarchs that came as well, and their Astartes. They would have been pivotal in winning against Horus Lupercal. Oh well.
No one speaks, no one dares. They are all afraid. For a brief moment, it had felt like they were going to be listened to. But the moment has passed, and they were marched away, to be imprisoned until the siege was over.
Imprisoned? I want you guys to be on the front lines and fighting. That's what we need. We need everybody who can fight on the front lines to defend the Imperial Palace.
However, these companions never made it to their cells. This late into the siege of Terra, the planet itself is sinking into the immaterium. Even the geography of the Imperial Palace is no longer stable. The traitors are inside the walls. In this confusion, the Argonauts escape, and they press on through geography that cannot be trusted, but with their mission to find and confront the Emperor. But then, on the walls of the Imperial Palace, they find themselves face to face with the absolute worst, the Hand of Destiny himself.
Erebus!
The Dark Apostle, Erebus. LEETU charges the Word-Bearer, using an iron post as a makeshift weapon, but Erebus utters a word of power, sending LEETU flying back. The rest of the Argonauts attack, but they stand no chance. Erebus slaughters most of them. John is able to ram some Eldari shears into Erebus's ear, but he suffers a broken jaw and arm.
Guys, Erebus is no pushover. He is no pushover. He knows how to fight. He survived an onslaught from Khan of the World Eaters. What are you guys compared to that? Nothing.
In the fight, using her immense Psychana, only Acte is able to hold the Dark Apostle. But not for long. LEETU grabs Olan John before leaping from the battlement, at which point Acte drives her power down. The wall explodes. She is buried alive beneath the rubble. When LEETU, John and Ol rise, they are no longer on the palace walls. They're not even really on Terra. Horus has drowned the planet in the immaterial, and everything is blurring together. Terra, the vengeful spirit, the warp itself. In this new darkness, centered around the War Master, a new realm is created for Horus. A new city, his city, the inevitable city. The three companions have somehow passed into this realm, and here it almost seems as if it's all cities that have ever been merged into one. Shortly after, more of Lupercal's soldiers find them. LEETU tries to hold off multiple word-bearers, but outnumbered, he takes a blade clean through his ribs. It begins to look like the end for Erda's legionary. But then, out of nowhere, another transhuman warrior enters the fight. He tosses LEETU a power sword, and back to back, they finish off Lorgar's demented sons. The newly arrived Space Marine is Gavial Loken, a beloved son of the War Master himself.
So, was Gavial Loken inside this inevitable city this whole time, trying to find a way to get to Horus? And then he found the Argonaut team.
Who had remained loyal to the Emperor of Mankind. I still am a captain of the Lunar Wolves, says Loken.
Okay. Though they don't exist anymore, but okay.
It's just that there are no lunar wolves left. My father is Horus Lupercal. What will you do when you find him? Asks Al. If he is still my father, I will beg him to relent and abandon the path he is following.
Oh, you sweet boy. You sweet, sweet boy.
If he is not, and I suspect he is not, I will avenge the brothers I have lost to his will. LEETU, Ol, and John had travelled far to reach this point. They had witnessed the depravity of the Emperor's children, the madness of the Word-Bearers. They'd even witnessed Malkador's torture upon the Golden Throne. But what they saw next was more terrible than any of them could have possibly imagined. There, in the inevitable city, in the process of his apotheosis, the Dark King was suddenly upon them. He was encased within an obsidian sphere, ready to emerge, ascendant as a complete new god of the warp, and his birth fire would consume most of humanity, just as Slaanesh did with the Eldari. Worst of all, as the Dark King approaches, they see the truth of it. The Dark King is not Horus Lupercal, but the Emperor of mankind. LEETU, Loken, Ol, and John did not understand why the...
I am not surprised that the Emperor would, make this sort of unilateral decision that would cost the lives of trillions of human beings across the galaxy. I'm not surprised. He's done something as arrogantly as this before, so it's not really a surprise, And the fact that the Emperor, in his wisdom, has made this as the first resort to his solutions, to become this Dark King, which would consume the souls of trillions of human beings across the galaxy, in order for him to defeat Horus Lupercal and probably also the Chaos Gods. I'm not surprised that he would take such drastic measures, throwing us under the bus, after he has told us repeatedly that what he does is for the betterment of mankind, that he loves humanity, that he will protect humanity. Is this how you protect us? Is this how you love us? Or loving the idea of humanity by killing it this way? I'm not really surprised.
The Emperor had done this. Even at the height of his arrogance, they never truly believed he sought to ascend as a god of the warp.
You clearly did not know him. None of you did. Nobody does. Because he is confusing. He's a liar. And everything he does is still somehow to the betterment of his own existence, and not necessarily for humanity. We are, a second thought, I would say. Because if we were the first thought in his mind, he would not initiate such a plan like this. He would not do it. And remember, he can see into all possible futures. Are you telling me that in all those possible futures, nothing has succeeded, only this action has succeeded? Really? No.
But what they did not understand was that the Emperor felt like he had no choice. Horus had tricked his father. Once the Anabasis assault was underway, the War Master revealed his ploy, and we see this through the perspective of Malkador on the Golden Throne. You no longer have to hide. You no longer have to conceal your power behind veils of secrecy and deceit. If he'd had an inkling of how strong you'd become, he would never have dared come to challenge you. So you wrapped all of yourself in unwen, in skeins of timelessness. Your presence, your thoughts, your soul, your power. You muted your mind took shelter in the past, in memories, in hexernal seclusion, behind artificial masks of dementia and madness. You allowed nothing to give you away, for just a glimpse of your true self would have stopped him in his tracks and made him flee. There's no going back now. He's approaching, and you no longer have to hide. You rise up, you cast off your masks and disguises, and stand revealed. It's liberating, intoxicating. Those around you, your warriors and officers, your sons, the other things that lurk and whisper, they cry out in dismay at the sight of you. The revelation of your new aspect is too magnificent for them. Their eyes burn. They fall to the deck, weeping and screaming and soiling themselves. You are a star too. You are a tower of lightning. You are a king above kings. You do not underestimate the nature of the fight that is about to take place. The last battle. It will be testing. It will be hard. Your once father is strong, but you are infinite. Horus's trick had worked. He had convinced the Emperor of his insanity by hiding his mind in the past. And when his father came to him, the War Master sprung his trap. After teleporting onto the vengeful spirit, the Emperor and his forces were scattered throughout the ship, and thereby the inevitable city. The Emperor and some of his custodians emerged on Embarkation Deck 8. This was the first sign to the Emperor that something had gone horribly wrong, for the vengeful spirit only had 6 embarkation decks. They were in a realm crafted by Horus. It was then that Horus demonstrated to his father the true extent of his power. He twisted the minds of the Emperor's own guardians. Blood flowed from the eyes of dozens of custodians. They screamed and attacked their liege lord.
And this is why we need the Sisters of Silence to be with custodians as a team. You know, I don't know why did the Emperor just come here alone with the custodians. He should have been here with the custodians' best shield. You know, the custodians are the sword. The Sisters of Silence are the shield. And when they work together, they are unbeatable. But I don't know why did the Emperor just think about bringing custodians here and it will be fine.
These warriors were beloved as any son, yet, due to the manipulations of the War Master, their King of Ages was forced to deliver unto them his horrific mercy. Though the Master of Mankind could defeat his own warriors and preserve a small few, he finally understood the true extent of his error. Horus had amassed so much power that even his father was no match for him. Unless, the Emperor realized, he chose to face his son not as a man, but as something far more. He drank deep from the warp. He drew upon the very power unleashed against him. He stole it, glutted himself upon it, just as he stole the fire on Molech. He will not be beaten. He will not be turned back. Though chaos assaults the Emperor with unprecedented ire, unleashing its power in a condensed paroxysm that exceeds all the warp events in human history, he will not back down. He meets the excess of chaos with its own excess, pushing his power beyond any cautious restrictions he has previously respected. He has always been a conduit too, resilient enough to tolerate the burning wire of immaterial forces that sizzle in his blood. He has been training himself to stand it for more than 30,000 years. He has conditioned himself to bear its force, to tap it, to use it, to inhale its fire and breathe it back in the faces of the Chaos Pantheon. They have opened the sunless sea of the Empyrean to him, and so he drinks from it to magnify his own almighty power. This is what the entire journey has been building towards. The Emperor of Mankind is on the cusp of making a terrible error. In his determination to defeat his son, he chose to become something even worse. Encased within the obsidian sphere, the Emperor is unable to communicate directly. Instead, he speaks through Kekautus Dusk, the sole surviving custodian of
Kekautus Dusk, okay.
his contingent. Through his proconsul, the Emperor addresses his old friend, Elenius Person, who must now persuade the Emperor to abandon the newfound power he has claimed, and see...
Yeah, good luck in convincing this entity to stop what it's doing and, make a different plan. Because the Emperor, like I said before, he likes yes men. He doesn't want to be challenged, he doesn't want to be questioned.
Another way to defeat Horus. For even if the Emperor can defeat his son, the warp will become a churning frenzy for millions of years. The material realm will be overcome and mankind wiped out. Unfortunately, the Lord of Terra is initially reluctant to accept this reasoning. He was always so sure of himself, says LEETU quietly. Kekautus Dusk turns his blood-blown eyes towards the injured legionary.
LEETU,
he says.
You are in no position to question the merits of my king's plan. You were created as part of it, the baseline prototype. An element of the plan does not get to question the plan.
Wow.
In a final attempt to make the Emperor see sense, All suggests that the Master of Mankind use his newly attained abilities, these godlike powers. Take a moment and examine the plan, analyze its flaws, use his godly perception to see the truth.
What I don't get is that it takes Elenius Person to tell the Emperor to do these things, and yet the Emperor doesn't do it himself, instinctively. To ascertain whether this is really the right thing for me to do. Because he's so sure of himself that this is the correct way, this is the correct answer, this is something I must do.
That the Dark King cannot be the solution. Following this advice, the Emperor finally agrees. The substance of creation shudders. Materia and immateria vibrate in shock. The power of the Dark King is expelled and scattered, pouring back into the Empyreum from whence it came, carrying with it flotsam and jetsam, the broken prophecies and driftwood predictions that brought it hence. The never-born wail en masse, their whispers turned in on themselves, twisted back into lies and cackled falsehoods, their future so assured, suddenly untruthed. The malison of the Dark King passes from the material galaxy and back into the simmering caskets of myth. For this age, at least. The despair of demonkind is...
For this age? Meaning that this Dark King project of the Emperor might still come back.
Is short-lived. As the glare spreads and begins to fade, their distress turns to glee. They perceive another victory, not the Dark King's magnificent and absolute abolition, but still one they have long yearned for. The fall of mankind, the triumph of ruin, the investiture of Horus Lupercal as Imperial Majesty, the binding of chaos undivided into one peerless vessel, an end and a death. At the epicenter of release, figures stumble and fall in the searing flash of psychic power that bursts from the Master of Mankind. The light consumes them. Elenius Person, John Grammaticus, Gavio Loken, and LEETU tumble over in the dust, blinded as the black mirror shell of the sphere fractures and explodes. They fall in fetal positions, carried over by the avalanche of ejected power. So does Kekautus Dusk, hammered to his knees. But the light does not kill them. In the last seconds of his godhood, the Emperor channels the force he is disposing. He does not do so out of sentiment or charity. He needs allies. He needs every last man. He cocoons those who have come to him in his aura, and lets it protect them against the ravening psychic winds. He cups them as gently as eggshells in his palm. This is not how they will die. It is too late for the other Sentinels. They cannot be brought back from death. But for the others, one final gift of life and renewal, the parting gift of an abdicating deity. All wakes in the billowing dust to find his countless aches and bruises gone, his weariness fled, his old uniform clean and new, his rifle as gleaming as it was when it was first manufactured. Loken rises to his knees, the terrible burden of his visions mercifully diluted to restore focus to his tortured mind.
So the Emperor is healing them and also repairing their clothing and their weapon systems. Interesting. This reminds me of the time when the Emperor landed on Mars and he repaired some sort of mechanical contraption that the tech priests of Mars could not. And, that's when they hailed him as the Omnisire. Okay.
LEETU's wound heals, the sheared armor remade. John, blinking, tears the bandages from a face, no longer mutilated with a hand, no longer useless. There is a pervading sense of osmogenesia, the blessing of the Emperor.
Hold on now, guys. Hold on. No, there's no such thing as blessings here. The Emperor's quite clear with the Imperial truth. You're not supposed to be worshipping him as a god or venerating him as a god, for his abilities. No. Slow down.
Caecautus Dusk, the last Heteron, rises to his feet. His Aquilon warplate glinting, his bones refleshed, and his flesh restored. A bright sigil glows upon his chestplate. He turns and sees that where once Doom sat, an aching black sphere, now a figure stands alone, its cloak stirring in the wasteland wind, white dust eddying around it, a figure in gold plate, a king, his master. Mere mortal now, divinity cast aside, but still a being of perpetual power. The golden giant draws his warblade. The last battle is near. That brings us to the end of the first part of LEETU's tale, and as you saw, it's somewhat central to the entire Warhammer 40k setting. The Emperor of Mankind, in a moment of hopelessness, nearly made his greatest ever mistake. He nearly ascended to become a god of the warp, a which would have basically wiped out humanity. Even Malkador.
Like I said before, I don't really see this as a mistake. This was intentional. This was calculated by the Emperor. He wanted to do this. He was about to go through with it. He was reluctant to change his mind on this plan. So we can't say it was, a mistake. No. Something this big, something this life-changing throughout the entire galaxy. And we're going to be saying that, he was desperate. He was going to make a mistake. No. That's just too lenient for my liking.
Seated upon the golden throne, could see that the Emperor's actions here were spiraling to a fate even more catastrophic than a Horus victory. Thankfully, because of the intervention of Loken and the remaining Argonauts, the Emperor was convinced to see the grave error in his path. Alanius was the main driving force here, however, it highlights the importance of LEETU, because LEETU had to get Old Person to that place at that point in time so that they could stop the Emperor from making this terrible decision. Because LEETU survives this encounter, it means that he is technically one of the only people in the entire Imperium that knows the Emperor nearly wiped out his entire race, and also
You know what? People won't care. People will not care. LEETU, yes, he might be one of the few people who know the truth that the Emperor almost committed a mass genocide of his entire species, but honestly, nobody's gonna care. In fact, in the 42nd millennium, they'll consider this as heresy. They will consider anyone who talks this sort of nonsense to be heresy, and they are heretics and they need to be burnt. So, yeah. LEETU just need to understand the type of person his father really is. He's not loving, he's not caring, he's not someone that you can really trust. That monster is prepared to do whatever means necessary for its own survival. It's prepared to throw us under the bus.
I think there's a good chance LEETU's going to come up in the future of the setting, because the Dark King is hinted to return in the future. He will come back in another age. And
so, as you can see, that means that the Emperor's Dark King plan is just being put on hold. He hasn't cancelled it, he hasn't scuttled this plan, he's just putting it on hold until the time is right for it to be reactivated. Meaning still, he's prepared to, kill trillions of human lives for the sake of his own plan and existence to continue. He cannot be trusted.
that age will most likely be the 42nd millennium. This whole scenario really highlights how much of a threat the Emperor of Mankind is to the Chaos Gods. They generally hate the idea of anyone else joining their pantheon, and they certainly loathe the idea of anyone being placed essentially above them, but they are actually willing to accept the Emperor of Mankind as the Dark King because it basically neutralizes the threat of the Emperor in their eyes.
I wonder how does that neutralize the threat if he becomes the Dark King? You know, wouldn't he be fighting for supremacy against the other pantheon of Chaos Gods? Alright.
At this point in the story, having spoken truth to the ultimate power, Ol and John leave by the request of the Emperor. Their story is not yet over, but for now, they accede to his demand.
Yeah, this is an Astartes Primarch business now. Human beings and perpetuals, they're not allowed to be here. This is a family affair now. Yeah. LEETU, the Emperor, the Custodian, what was it again? Gavial Loken is here too. Yeah, this is a family affair.
Nevertheless, Kekautus Dusk, the Heteron Proconsul, Gavial Loken, the Lunar Wolf, and LEETU, the Proto-Astartes, remain. Loken and LEETU kneel before the Master of Mankind, for what Ol presumes is a final oath of moment. The threat of the Dark King may be gone, but Horus Lupercal, champion of the old gods, remains, and all of chaos is channeled into him. The Emperor has returned to his normal golden colossus form once more, and he prepares to meet his son. The four warriors tear through the inevitable city, seeking Horus Lupercal. Though he is no longer in ascendancy to godhood, he is still the master of mankind. The demons foolish enough to meet him suffer a grisly end. The Emperor can deliver true death to the monsters. They will never again see life or threaten his Imperium. And it's not just demons that stand in their way. Before the Emperor and his companions lies a full company of word-bearers. We can take...
Word-bearers? Do they not remember what happened last time when the Emperor, used his abilities to push them to the floor, to essentially be on bended knee, as they saw the destruction of their perfect city of Malakia. And now they're going to try and fight against the Emperor and his entourage. Good luck. Good luck.
LEETU says. The remark is so offhand, so flippant, it takes Loken by surprise, and he laughs with genuine amusement for the first time in years.
We can,
says Kekautus, but his voice is not his own. The Emperor takes a single step forward. With an instant ripple of motion and clatter of arms, the traitors shift, raising weapons into proffers, lowering pikes and polearms to address. There is a loud pneumatic thump whine, like the amplified spit of a nail gun, as the siege dreadnought's weapons pods open fire. Dazzling bolts of tank-killing lads streak up the slope and vanish. Loken feels the ache of elevated psionics. He can almost see the ripple of the mind shield the Emperor has raised as it is struck by the immense firepower. He hears the slap and hiss of lasfire hitting nothing and being nullified. All kinetic force scattered, all thermal energy radiated away. Then the ache increases so sharply, Loken feels it in the sinus cavities of his head. His ears throb. The Emperor takes another step. He is raising his power claw, his warblade held low at his side in the other hand. Dazzling voltaics accumulate in his palm and coil between his finger claws, jumping like plasma strings. He lets the gathered lightning go. It arcs from his raised hand, faults the sky above the blasted heath, and strikes the ground just short of the traitor mass. There is a flare of black body radiation, a thunderclap of violet gas pressure change, an ionized bang of electrical discharge as gigajoules of energy are released.
Burn, traitors, burn.
The struck ground burns, the struck ground breaks, the shockwave widens, propagating plasma fire that rolls into the wordbearer's lines, annihilating the ground into churning ash and obliterating the ranks of warriors standing upon it. They disintegrate one by one, shredded by heat and fire, hurled into the air. Fused armor plates and scorched weapons spinning out of the destruction as debris that scatters, smouldering in a wide swathe across the landscape. Nothing organic survives. The rolling wave of shockfire sweeps through the entire cohort, unstoppable, consuming everything. Burning men whole like twig effigies, melting ceramite, igniting banners that burn wildly as they slump and fall. Cataphractii melt like wax. The siege dreadnoughts, stubborn and defiant, with their great armoured bulks, burn with blue fire like drop pods on re-entry and then burst one by one in titanic explosions as their payloads cook off. When the glare fades and the ache subsides, there is nothing left apart from an acre or two of churned and blackened ground. Fragments of plate and heat-darkened armour segments litter the burned area, and the heathland wind drives the hot smoke sideways in a long white plume. It becomes clear, though the Emperor willingly gave up his godhood, he will not give up his Imperium without a fight. The warriors find what they've been searching for, the seat of the War Master, the Lupercal Court. Upon stepping inside, LEETU gasps. There's no sign of Horus, but Sanguinius, the great angel of Baal, is dead. His brutally beaten body is now crucified to a wall. Though the
Crucified? Whoa, okay, I don't know that Horus crucified Sanguinius' body after he killed him. Oh. Because the images I've seen have always depicted Horus and the Emperor, facing each other, and Sanguinius on the floor, dead. Wow, okay.
The Emperor's companions struggle to contain their grief, even as he approaches the lifeless body of the Primarch. The father of Sanguinius remains unmoved by their anguish. When he rejected the promise of godhood, he also severed much of his emotional core, numbing.
Yeah, whatever emotional core he really had. So, I mean, this guy, no. In terms of emotions, like I said before, they're almost non-existent with him and Erda. They're very weird parents. They don't really love their children. They mainly just see them as tools, especially when it comes to the Emperor. Yeah. And probably the Emperor has already seen the death of Sanguinius, as he's seen possible futures. He's probably already seen the death of Sanguinius.
Himself to pain that could otherwise be wielded as a weapon against him.
Take him down,
he commanded. Loken and Kekautus move to gently free and lower down the body of the angel.
Is he here?
LEETU asks.
Yes, LEETU.
They hear his smile before they see him, but Horus Lupercal, 16th Primarch, War Master, champion of the Dark Gods, steps out of the shadows. He attempts to convince the Master of Mankind to submit, to join his new Imperium. He has created a space for the Emperor.
You... what? Horus, you must be joking. You must be joking. There is no way that, you know, the Emperor can serve you in your new empire. There's no way. One must stand and one must fall.
His speech is self-aggrandizing. Of course it is. He has quite the audience. The 4 gods of chaos have come to witness this meeting. They are huge, terrifying, and beautiful.
So they are there personally. They're watching this like live on television, probably, and having a live call with all their, you know, counterparts of the Pantheon, and just crossing fingers and, you know, being excited, watching, you know, their champion Horus Lupercal fighting against his father. But, you know, they're also the parents of the Primarchs. So yeah, you know, the Chaos Guards are just enjoying this entire family affair.
As Horus addresses his father, he grows increasingly frustrated. Not only does the Emperor's custodian keep interrupting, demanding Horus surrender, but the Emperor himself doesn't seem to be engaging with what Horus is saying at all. He just keeps repeating the same phrases.
You have killed my son.
And why? Horus doesn't
What do you mean, why, Emperor? You know why. And besides, it's not only your son. These children belong to the Chaos Gods themselves as well. So, you guys are fighting over custody over these children. Yeah. And it's not only your son. Don't forget that.
understand why the Emperor is saying these things to him. But then he realizes the Emperor isn't talking to Horus at all. He's talking past Horus to the Chaos Gods.
Yep.
At that point, it sets in for the War Master. His father considers him dead. Horus can no longer control his rage. He decides to give his father but a taste of his new power. With just a single blast, the former Master of Mankind falls.
And this is why I say we need those sisters here. We need, you know, the silent sisterhood to be here. Because now Horus is going to resort to warp abilities to quash the Emperor.
The gods approve. In the theatrical galleries of the court, the old 4 watch and chuckle. The Emperor cannot move. He is pinned by slow, incinerating death. He refuses to scream or voice his pain. He will not give Horus that satisfaction. But he cannot move, except to writhe and spasm. He cannot move. But Kekautus can, fueled by pain and rage and desperation.
Target the head. It's exposed. Don't target the Terminator armor. It's pointless to do that. Target the head.
The proconsul breaks from his trance and hurls himself at Horus. His bolter shells blasting from the mount of his paragon spear, detonating against the first found's thigh and hip. The weapon's blade, swung in an expert address, strikes an instant later. Horus turns, surprised by the Heteron's assault. Kekautus hacks and thrusts, driving his spear against the serpent's scales. Horus shifts his maul to smash his attacker aside. He continues to pour energy into his father's body. He has not finished. He will not be interrupted. Then Mornitor bites. LEETU comes at the first found from another angle, adding his borrowed blade to the proconsul's valiant efforts. Horus roars. His rage shakes the psychofractal darkness of the court. Still, he burns power down into his father. Then Rubio Sword, star bright with the Emperor's will, slices into him too.
Somebody please target the head. Stop targeting the armor. Like, come on. Be the hero. For once, be the hero, guys. Don't let the Emperor be the hero. You have this opportunity. Smash the head. Blow up the head. You know, spear the head.
Loken does not hesitate. His gauntlets still red with the angel's blood. He slashes the blade at his father's plate. Every blow a killing blow. Every blow a lethal strike. Every blow raining at the War Master from each one of the three would be a conquering blow on any other day. The stroke of a master warrior that would fell and slay any opponent. Except this opponent is past slaying. He is deathless and unkillable. The undivided power of chaos has inured him against mortal harm. And that which does not kill him simply makes him angry. Still, the three blades land. It is not the damage that bothers Horus, nor the wounds. The wounds are nothing to him. It is not the razor edge of the Paragon Spear, nor the shearing force of Mornitool, nor even the scolding kiss of Rubio's sword. It is the sight of his own son turned against him. Garvio. No compunction, no reserve, no restraint, no respect for paternity or bloodline, or a love once given and returned. Loken has come against him, with a look in his cold grey eyes that Horus knows of old, a look that means he has no other purpose than killing. It is a look that all Loken's enemies down the years have seen, briefly, once. Horus never thought to be fixed by that look. It seems to hurt him more than anything the gods have ever done to him. And the gods, the old four, in their shrouded abditory, stir and crane forwards. They observe hungrily, fathers and sons, agnate loyalties. Such complex connections always provide the most exquisite sport. Horus roars again, the malign energy streaming from his claws cease, his prey forgotten. He turns on Loken. Now it is Loken's turn to see and feel the look, the focused bloodlit glare of War Master Lupercal that
Now witness the full might of the Chaos Gods, Loken.
has illuminated worlds and torn empires down. Those eyes of terror. Do it, Loken spits. Prove to me what you have become. Horus needs no urging. He has no compunction either. His claws open to turn the power upon his son and punish the insolence of an ungrateful child. The lightning comes. Loken does not flinch, but LEETU moves, smashing Loken out of its path, and Kekautus moves, driving his spear blade against the talon to turn the blast aside. The arc of power goes wide. It scorches Loken and LEETU as it passes over them, and scalds the flesh inside their plate.
Yeah, guys, please, someone target the head. Like, I'm giving you the answers here. I'm giving you the answers here in this test. You gotta target the head. Look at it. It's the most exposed part on his body. The rest of his body is cladded in this Terminator armor. There's no way you guys are gonna penetrate through that armor, unless if you're the Emperor with his blade or his claw gauntlet armor thingy. You know, you guys gotta target that head.
It blasts a deep and molten trench in the floor of the court. The infinite architecture of the War Master's sanctum shivers and shifts to repair its sepulchre black form. Horus thrusts forward. Kekautus strikes him again from the right. The War Master smashes him aside, intent upon his son. The proconsul tumbles away, a discarded toy, Praesidium shield shattered, and Aquilon plate torn. Loken gets to his feet as LEETU finds his. He turns to face his father. The War Master is an onrushing avalanche of darkness. The claws rise, power wells to roast his son to cinders. The baleful lightning arcs out and envelops Loken and LEETU both. They do not die. They stand, bemused, as the hate and power, black as old night and threaded with warp flux, crackles around them with an absolute vehemence, yet held at bay. Horus lowers his hand, and the lightning stops. He turns. The Emperor lowers his hand. dissolving the mind shield that prevented the immolation of his 2 warriors. He is standing, the golden breastplate is scorched black, and his cloak is charred. Blood runs slowly from his nose and the corner of his lip. His warsword rises in his hand, and an asterism of white light flares like a rising sun behind his crowned head. He moves towards his son with the lustral wrath of a supernova. Horus comes to meet him with the atrocifying hunger of a black hole. They clash, each landing blows simultaneously. Ignescent collision shakes the world. Chunks of marble and broken buttress rain down from the quaked ceiling.
And you know, these guys are huge. The Emperor is a huge being. And Horus Rupercal, after his upgrades from the Chaos Gods, has also become a very huge, being. And both of them are running at each other, sprinting at each other, fighting each other with their blade or the warhammer that Horus Rupercal has in his possession. And they make it seem so easy. I mean, they're both wearing Terminator armor and they're just flowing so fast, fighting each other so fast. It must be insane. Really.
Fractal surfaces break and shatter like porcelain.
Like insane to see. Imagining them fight against each other with such speed, accuracy, and it must be like a blur to like a normal human being seeing them fight. Probably our eyes could not even catch up to see how are they fighting against each other. It would just be one huge blur of these giant beings, fighting each other. Yeah, I think I would go sick. If I were to see them fight against each other, I think I would go sick because of such disturbing blurs of color and just hearing the crackling sounds of blades hitting on each other, and yeah, it would just be crazy.
The high windows of the court blow out in showers of coloured glassic, letting in the red glow of the warp and permitting a giddying view of Terra, blistered and inflamed below. The old four squeal in alarm, and then applaud. Father and son. This is between them now. In that sequence, it's very clear just how powerful Horus Lupercal is compared to his father. The champion of chaos is able to strike the Emperor down with a single blow, and he repeats this feat multiple times.
And the Chaos Gods loved that. They were laughing. They really did enjoy that.
Throughout their battle. Furthermore, despite being some of the greatest warriors in the Imperium, LEETU, Loken and Countess Dusk pose little threat to Horus. For me, this raises a crucial question then. Why was it previously stated that the Emperor of Mankind needed these warriors at all? LEETU in particular is certainly an outlier. Loken is someone that I can see the Emperor wanting in that room. Given that the Emperor faces both a physical and metaphysical disadvantage against his son, he might seek some sort of psychological edge, and Loken offers exactly that. Once the favoured son of the War Master, Loken's refusal to join Horus in rebellion cuts deep, and Horus's anger at his former captain, who remained loyal to the Emperor, could give the Master of Mankind that psychological leverage that he needs in this confrontation. As well as Loken, the presence of the custodian Countess Dusk really gets under Horus's skin. It is said that the Emperor loved the custodians as much as any son, which is an odd statement given that the Primarchs were actually his sons, and the Emperor can be a difficult parent to them at times, to say the least.
Yeah, it's a messy family. It's a very messy family. Like I've stated before, the mother is non-existent in their lives. The father is non-existent in their lives only when he needs something from them. Then he appears. Otherwise, nah. After their orientation into what the Imperium of Man is all about and what is expected of them, he says bon voyage, goodbye, I might see you after maybe 50, 80 years. Whatever you do, just continue on with the Great Crusade, and I will watch your progress. Bye. If you're not doing anything correct, he would send one of his other sons to correct you. Or, if you are lucky, he would come personally to chastise you. You know, just ask the word bearers how they were chastised by him. So yeah, it's an odd family.
Not only will Horus have some resentment here, but the Emperor is also known to speak through his custodians at times, so Dusk's voice is not always his own. Every time Dusk opens his mouth, it feels to the War Master like his father is refusing to properly address him and instead speaking through a proxy. The Primarch's anger is evident because every time the Proconsul speaks, Horus hisses at him to be quiet. The Space Marine LEETU, on the other hand, wouldn't really bother Horus at all. Horus doesn't even have any idea who LEETU is. He doesn't recognize this Space Marine. He has no idea about this kind of part of the Primarch project.
LEETU is the Dark Horse. He is the unknown player in this entire, game. And even the Chaos Guards are not even taking interest or focus on LEETU or any of the other people that are around the Emperor. It's just the Emperor and Horus Lupercal to them.
Might have suspected, but he never had any confirmation that there were these prototypes made for the Space Marines. Yet still, the Emperor needed LEETU in the Lupercal court. One thing to consider perhaps, when the Great Angel died at the hands of his brother, it was felt by many across Terra and beyond, including the Emperor of Mankind. What if the Emperor understood that his son had perished and that somebody would need to protect his body? When the Emperor and Horus collided, the energies shattered physicality. The blast sends LEETU, Loken, and Kekautus Dusk flying in different directions, into different realities even. Thankfully, when LEETU rises, he's still in the court and can see the epic duel. But unfortunately, he will be of no help there. He knows there is very little he can do, but he'll do whatever that might turn out to be.
Yeah, just wait for your chance to strike, LEETU. Don't just jump in there and try to help your father, because you'll be smashed. You are puny. You don't have enough strength or the height, or the weaponry systems to attack Horus Lupercal. So just wait, be patient, wait for an opening to avail itself, and then you can strike. And make sure it's the head. I don't know how many times do I have to repeat this to these guys. Target his head.
He promised his mistress he would. Such promises are binding. LEETU has never made a formal oath of moment like the ones pledged by the Astartes that came after him. His promise to Erda was more personal, more powerful. He hefts Mornatul and looks around. He sees a fight he can't be part of. The Emperor and Horus are dueling just 30 meters away. LEETU has never seen such power, and he's certainly never seen such skill, not once in his life. The Emperor, haloed by golden radiance, is attacking with claw and sword, switching from one weapon to the other, then combining both, a masterclass of combat technique. Though the weapons, the huge warblade and the rending powerclaw, are heavy and brutal instruments designed for lumbering battlecraft and maximum damage, the Emperor wields them as lightly and deftly as a rapier and dagger, darting and spinning, blocking, cutting, thrusting, using them both with dazzling precision and elegance. His lithe movements remind LEETU of Eldari dancers he once saw while accompanying his mistress on an unexplained journey. They are the sequences of the sacred mask, the expression of absolute warfare as art. Horus, an abomination of seething warp flux that seems almost twice the Emperor's size, is armed even more crudely. His talons are immense industrial pincers, wheezing steam from their pneumatic valves, and his maul is wrought to do nothing more than batter and break. But, and LEETU can scarcely believe what he is seeing, the behemoth Lupercal is fluid and nimble too. despite his atrocious night black mass. Such is his sheer power. Horus is matching his adversary in refinement and dexterity. More than matching, his blows and parries are not mere mindless power.
Yeah, it's those upgrades he got from the Chaos Gods, you know. He moves just as fast as the Emperor. He's just as powerful physically as the Emperor now. And like I said before, just imagine them fighting each other. These huge superhuman creatures, just, you know, close contact battle, melee weaponry, and it must be something sickly to watch. You know, it also reminds me of something like Dragon Ball Z. I don't know if you guys have watched Dragon Ball Z, but you know, when, for instance, if Goku's fighting against Frieza on Namek, and you are Krillin, you are just a normal human being, you're Krillin, and you're watching these two fighting each other, and you know, you can't see them. They're there, but you can't really see where their hands are going, where their legs are going. They're just fighting, then they teleport, then they reappear in another place. They're fighting, they teleport, then they reappear in another place. That's exactly what's happening here with LEETU. He's experiencing that, you know, seeing Horus Supercal and the Emperor fight, and he wants to help, but he doesn't know when or how to help in this type of situation. And that's why I'm saying he should just wait for that opening to avail itself. Yeah.
They are subtle, surgical, intuitive. Over the years, LEETU has heard much of the Lupercal's battle prowess. He has never doubted that Horus is a fine warrior, for only a fine warrior could have been anointed Warmaster, but he has treated the extravagant stories of talent and skill with circumspection. They were not exaggerations.
Yeah, they're not exaggerations now because he's upgraded. Before, yes, he was a good fighter. He was a good, strategist, before he was consumed by chaos. But now that he is consumed by chaos, it's just amplified 100 times fold.
Even now, encumbered by the weight of chaos incarnate, shrouded in the warp, distorted into a form so awful and bestial that LEETU can scarcely bear to look at it, Horus is also a master. His method is sublime. He is using the maul and the talons with bewildering genius, every motion lightning fast, every stroke calculated a dozen moves in advance, and not one of them bluntly telegraphed. And then there is the speed, the inhuman speed. As they wheel and flow around the court, the pair of them are barely more than motion blurs to him. LEETU's transhuman perception struggles to track them or keep up with the hyper-rapid dialogue of weapons. They are moving so swiftly, there is an almost constant concussion as the air is violently displaced.
Like I said, LEETU is like Krillin, and he's watching Frieza and Goku fight each other.
Every time LEETU makes a tentative move towards them, they have circled away again, travelling at a rate that LEETU knows he can't match. Joining the fight is like trying to board a vehicle already in motion.
I would say it's like trying to board a spacecraft that's already in motion. That's how dangerous this is. And if you just miss it and you get, or should I say you collide with the spacecraft, you'll be smashed into a bloody piled mess. Yeah.
He tries again, but seems almost static beside them. He pursues them into a colonnade, but all he finds there is broken stone and fragments of rubble where their whirring weapons have clipped chunks out of the walls or felled archway piers like saplings. They are already behind him. He turns and is almost trampled as they sweep past. It is impossible to engage. They are clashing at a different register of speed. At the peak of his reflexes, LEETU cannot hope to synchronize with them for long enough to land a blow, and if he tried, he would be pulverized like driftwood in a millisecond. He gazes in abject awe. He understands the freezing dread that humans feel when they behold Astartes in battle. He lowers his blade, helpless, useless. He is a lone observer of the titanic struggle, an interloper surplus to requirements, an accidental bystander who had stumbled on stage from the wings, but has no part to play and knows none of the lines. The sense of impotence is agonizing. This spectacle will decide the destiny of his species, but he can only watch.
Don't worry, like I said, you will have your chance.
Infuriated, choked by frustration, LEETU looks around for the others. But there is no sign of the Lunar Wolf Loken or the proud custodian proconsul anywhere in the court. Have they already tried what he is attempting? Have they thrown themselves into the fight and been reduced to smears, torn apart by the fury of contesting gods?
It's possible. I mean, everything is going so fast, you won't be able to see or, hear any of the other, warriors do anything because it's just a blur.
The locked focus between father and son is so intense, LEETU doubts either of them would have noticed who they were crushing underfoot. The court itself is no longer the dark cathedral LEETU entered at the Emperor's side. He sees that now. The infinite architecture of the First Found's Temple of Ruin must have been shattered by the force of that initial bomb blast collision. LEETU wonders if the disappearance of the terrible infinite architecture is a promise of hope. The Lupercal Court was an aspect, a palace of terror instantiated by the warp to terrify and intimidate the First Found's visitors. If Lupercal has suspended it to divert power to his limbs, it suggests that his power is finite. Perhaps he is not the limitless expression of chaos that they feared.
I mean, the Chaos Gods can still give him another boost. They're watching him. So I'm sure they will try and support their champion if they see that their champion is waning or he needs more power. They'll give him that extra boost.
Perhaps he is being tested to his thresholds by the Emperor's strength. Perhaps he is weakening. It would explain why the combat is just that, single combat, man to man. LEETU can discern no trace of psychic conflict, other than the internalized force that drives through their bodies and feeds their weapons. No immaterial duel rages between them, no blasts of psychic force or bolts of lightning or beams of gouging light. Perhaps, for all their speed and strength, they are wearing each other down, burning each other out, so that sword and maul and claws and skill are the only weapons left with which this can be settled. LEETU is forced to duck aside as they thunder past again, Horus driving the Emperor back into guardrails and a partition bulkhead that explode into fragments as they crash through them. Though there is no trace of Loken or Kekautus, the corpse of the Emperor's angelic child still lies broken on the deck. LEETU hurries to the body. It is laid out in a clumsy, disjointed sprawl, and the wounds upon it are appalling to see. Even so, LEETU reaches down and gently touches the bloody throat. There is no pulse, no heat. Sanguinius is cold and gone. Indeed, he seems more than lifeless. The great angel, it seems, has suffered worse than mortal death. Spirit and soul have been obliterated. There is a terrible sense of utter extinction, as though life has not just been ended.
So this is a true death then, meaning his soul or his spirit won't be able to come back. Like how demons, if you kill them, they'll always come back. They just need time to reconstitute their existence again and they'll be back. So essentially the Primarchs are quite similar because, they've been bestowed with power from the warp. So yeah, their spirits will still be in existence if their physical body has been destroyed. But yeah, like Horus Supercal, when the Emperor uses his spirit or soul erasure psyker technique on Horus to obliterate his soul, there's something similar has happened now to Sanguinius. That means Horus not only killed his brother, but he obliterated his soul into non-existence. Wow.
But was never there to begin with. LEETU sees movements in the shadows nearby, the scurry of rats in ventilation grates, the flicker of vermin behind coolant ducts. Never-born scavengers have come to feed, drawn by the odor of death. Despite the calamitous conflict nearby, which makes them quail and hesitate, their hunger is overcoming their timidity. They are beginning to creep and scuttle forward, to pick over the bones, to snatch a mouthful of flesh, to gnaw off some portion of the kill they can flee with back to the shadows and devour.
Wow, I guess the vengeful spirit has not been kept clean and organized by the people who are supposed to be managing, the ship's hygiene. Now there's some giant warp corrupted rats busy, scurrying around in the ventilation shafts and just eating whatever on the floor. Ew. My gosh.
LEETU starts in dismay. The first darts in, brazen. It looks like a skinned dog. LEETU hacks Mornatul through its skull and knocks it away. The second scurries forward and he puts his blade through it, then a third, which he catches with a glancing blow and sends yelping into retreat.
You may not be helping the Emperor in fighting Horus Supercult, but at least you're defending your stepbrother's corpse. Yeah. That's good.
But a fourth has already got its jaws around the angel's ankle, and a fifth is lapping blood from the soaked feathers of a wing. LEETU growls. He will not permit this desecration. He drives them off, butchering those he can, but as fast as he chases them away, to a protest of whining and yapping, others scuttle in from different angles, emboldened and eager. Revolted, he stands astride the angel's body and stabs and slashes to keep them at bay. They are swarming from the shadows now, an encircling tide, barking and growling and snorting. Some are small, the size of rodents, but others are larger and more fearless, hideous things of matted fur and wild eyes. Things that drool and laugh, spined things that glisten and slither, bloated things with abattoir claws and shearing chisel teeth. It becomes a frenzy, his frantic blade trailing their blood and fibre in the air, dappling the deck with ichor. They pour in from all sides, and he realizes as he chops and jabs that while dead meat is easy and appetizing, living flesh is an appealing delicacy too. It's an incredibly touching scene that for me, because whether you believe Sanguinius is technically a brother of LEETU or not, certainly, from LEETU's point of view, that is his mother's son. Therefore, LEETU is willing to risk his own life to protect the body of the fallen angel. This was also, I think, quite a clever piece of writing by Dan Abner, because one thing you might have picked up on there is this wording around the body of Sanguinius, talking about how Sanguinius has suffered a fate worse than death. To understand why this is so significant, we can take a look at another Primarch who died during the heresy, Sanguinius' brother Ferrus Manus of the Iron Hands. He was slain by his brother Fulgrim during the tragic Drop Site massacre. However, despite his death, Ferrus Manus has made several appearances since then. For example, a being claiming to be the soul of Ferrus Manus actually appeared before Sanguinius aboard the Vengeful Spirit. The Emperor was able to summon the soul of Ferrus Manus to fight for him in the Webway. In the 42nd millennium, the Iron Hands maintain that their Primarch visited them briefly after the heresy, claiming he would one day return. All of this hints that while Ferrus Manus is...
So he might return. In what form or what shape would he return? Exactly. Like, is there going to be some sort of human body that he can transfer his soul into? Or a mechanical body? Like, in what form or shape would he return? And now I'm thinking about Conrad Kurz. Conrad Kurz was not given a true death, if I can say that. Yes, he was assassinated by an Officio Assassinorum assassin, but his soul was not utterly destroyed. That means his soul probably resides in the warp, and it can also come back one way or another. But the question is, would Conrad Kurz want to come back? Okay.
Soul is eternally preyed upon by malevolent warp entities, it remains roughly intact. Therefore, there is a possibility that Ferrus Manus could return to the setting in the 42nd millennium. There are two potential ways I could imagine this happening. In the story the board is set, the Emperor implies that he could fix his dead son when he has the time. This tells us that either he or someone else could craft a body or at least a vessel that could house Ferrus Manus' soul. The other option is to bring Manus back as a member or leader even of the Legion of the Damned. With the Great Rift open and the Emperor being more powerful than ever, the Master of Mankind might now be able to summon the soul of one of his most powerful warriors. There is a reason we're taking this detour to briefly explore the lore surrounding the Gorgon's death. It adds crucial context to the death of Sanguinius. The end and the death sets a clear distinction between the fates of the 10th and 9th Primarchs, and I believe Black Library is laying the groundwork now to explain that whilst Ferrus Manus may return to the setting in some way, Sanguinius' return remains entirely impossible. LEETU has seen dead bodies before, but the body of Sanguinius has suffered something worse than death. He notes there is a sense of utter extinction, as though life has not just been ended, but was never there to begin with. The great angel's spirit and soul have been utterly obliterated. Warhammer 40k lore is very vague when it comes to matters of the soul. For instance, 10,000 years after Sanguinius' death, when the Baal system itself was invaded by Tyranids, Chapter Master Dante, while wounded, had a vision of his gene father. Later on, Chief Librarian Mephiston of the Blood Angels also had a vision of a bloody angel resembling the Primarch.
I don't think that's the spirit of the Primarch. Like we've all agreed and have stated that that Sanguinius' soul was erased from existence by Horus Lupercal. So this entity that they are seeing is probably the manifestation of all the psychic energy from humanity as they celebrate Sanguinius. What do they call that holiday for Sanguinius? Sanguilara Day, something like that. Yeah, and the amount of psychic concentration from so many blood angels, in terms of remembering their father, as well as other human beings who also worship the pantheon of demigods alongside their god emperor. All of that power manifests a new type of entity that exists in the warp, and I think that's what this is. I think that's what they're seeing, this entity that was created from their thoughts in the warp. Yeah, it's not Sanguinius. The real Sanguinius is dead. This is just a echo, an imitation of the real thing. That's what I think.
However, neither of these events provide conclusive proof that Sanguinius' soul endures in a meaningful way. In fact, both Dante and Mephiston are skeptical. Sanguinius is recorded as being one of the Emperor's most psychic sons. Would that have been enough? As far as it is understood to us, a powerful soul might persist in the warp for a time, but they are never whole, never what they were in life. Eldari lore is rich with horrible tales about what occurs to the dead. If we take a radical step and assume that what we saw could possibly be our Lord and Father, then we must ask ourselves why he has not shown himself to us before. Additionally, the Bloody Angel himself maintains that although he looks like Sanguinius, he is not their father, for Sanguinius is dead. So if LEETU was correct and Sanguinius' soul was obliterated, how do we account for these visions of Sanguinius in the current 40k timeline? The most likely answer is that these are echoes of Sanguinius' soul, or essentially the shredded remains of it. Or perhaps Sanguinius' soul has fragmented, similar to what we've seen with Magnus the Red and to some extent the Emperor.
Yeah, I never thought about that. Yeah, that's also possible, definitely. But I'm not sure if was Sanguinius a very powerful psyker like Magnus or like the Emperor. I don't think so. Maybe it is possible. that yes, his soul has shattered into many pieces and it has been spread across the galaxy. It's possible, I guess, but I think it's far more believable if it were Magnus, because he's such a powerful psyker, and of course the Emperor, because he's also a very powerful psyker. But yeah, like I said, I think that entity that these people are seeing is not Sanguinius. It's just an imitation of their thoughts being projected in the warp that has created this entity that might believe itself to be Sanguinius.
This could explain why there are multiple warp entities such as the Black Angel, the Golden Angel, and the Bloody Angel that seem to represent different aspects of Sanguinius. Ultimately, if the Angel of Baal never returns to the setting, that's probably for the best. Sanguinius's noble sacrifice is a cornerstone of Warhammer 40k lore.
Indeed. I mean, if Sanguinius were to return, then it kind of cheapens the story. Someone so important, someone so liked and loved by so many people, and his death being that equally more devastating and a great loss to the Imperium of Man, a great loss to the Emperor, a great loss to the Legion, the Blood Angels, something like that creates the story. It gives it that grit, it gives it that importance that, these people are here for only once in their existence, and they can never come back again. They're that important, they're that unique and special, and if we don't appreciate them while we still have them, then they will be gone for good. And if Sanguinius were to return and then he'd be killed again and he will return, then it just loses that value. It cheapens the character. It makes them seem as if they're not really important. And those who read the books, or those who watch lore videos like I am right now, we won't really appreciate what Sanguinius has done, and what he has done while he was still alive as a Primarch. So yeah, if the person is dead, let them stay dead.
And thereby not something that should ever be diminished. Another reason why the damage to Sanguinius and his soul is so significant is that it provides context for the wounds that the Emperor also suffers at the hands of the Lupercal. It might not be so easy for the Emperor, or at least the half of the Emperor on the Golden Throne, to heal and restore himself. Whatever it is that Horus puts into his attacks that shattered the soul of Sanguinius, he also would have put that into the attacks that he puts into the Emperor of Mankind. And when LEETU is near the body of the Emperor later, he gets that same feeling again. It's almost like the Emperor has suffered some great metaphysical injury, which of course would match up very well with what we know about the Emperor's fight with Horus. In the wider context of Warhammer 40k, this sheds doubt on the idea that even the Emperor's perpetual abilities would be able to heal the damage dealt by the soul-shattering blows of Horus. In the 42nd millennium, for example, should we see the Imperium develop the technology to allow the Emperor to leave the Golden Throne, it's still not clear if the Master of Mankind would be able to heal himself and stride the galaxy as he did during the Great Crusade.
I think it is for the best that he stays where he is. He should not get off that chair, off that throne. He should not. We went through a very turbulent, traumatic experience with him when he was still alive and walking amongst us. And I don't think humanity can survive another, merry-go-round with this entity. No, it's probably for the best that he stays in that throne for all time. That's his job now. That's his responsibility, to keep the Astronomicon active, to hold the Webway gate, preventing the demons from entering onto Terra. He should just stay right there. if his body is to be destroyed in some sort of catastrophe, or maybe the Golden Throne might fail, mechanical parts might fail, and it's no longer effective, then okay, so be it. But if there's a way to repair the throne chair, I propose that the Emperor should just stay where he is, because having this very powerful entity walk amongst us is not going to be a good thing for humanity. Let the Emperor's sons, Robute Gilliman, Lionel Johnson, and those who are going to return, deal with the work of repairing the galaxy and uniting humanity under the banner of the Imperium of Man. At least with them, they are far more relatable to humanity than the God Emperor or the Emperor of mankind. Yeah.
Later on, LEETU gets a look at the wounds his father has suffered. Erda's legionary continues fending off the scavenging demons, protecting the lifeless body of the angel. Finally, he notices they begin to retreat, but to his horror, he realizes that they retreat not because of him, but because Horus Lupercal now stands barely 100 meters away, and he stands over the broken body of his father. There is so much blood. How could LEETU not have heard the crash of that giant figure falling? The brute War Master, looming over his father, is wounded too, but he seems oblivious to the gouges and furrows that tatter the serpent's scales. He flexes his vast shoulders, easing the tension accumulated during the duel. His bloodlit face seems pensive, almost sad, as he regards his father's body, but there is a hint of that deafening smile too. The wrath of the Neverness storm is nothing to the rage rising in LEETU's heart. He has failed. The promise he made to his mistress is broken. The Emperor is vanquished, and ruin is triumphant. LEETU should have done more. He should have done something. He should have persisted and thrown himself into that awful combat, even if it had meant being torn apart by the opposing powers.
But the result would be the same. The Emperor would be on the floor, dead, while dying, and Horus Lupercal would be the victor. So throwing yourself into that fight would not really have done anything of any significance. Be patient. Your time will come.
That death would have been better than this regret. All he did was protect a corpse. The angel's dead. Who fights for the dead? The only thing worth fighting for is the living. LEETU sees the fingers of the Emperor's limp right hand twitch slightly. Just a tremble. He is alive still. Just. Balanced on the edge of life, and helpless in the face of the final execution Horus Lupercal is about to deliver. But father and son have finally stopped moving at those insane superhuman speeds, speeds incompatible with LEETU's metabolism. LEETU couldn't hope to strike then, or lend his blade to any advantage, but now he can. Now he can keep his promise to Erda. LEETU steals towards them. He hugs the shadows, as timid and insignificant as the never-born vermin that he drove from the corpse. He ignores the black fractal scales rippling under his feet as they reform. He ignores the spatters of royal blood, the debris of auramite fragments, and the foetid stink of burnt ilum. He ignores a stray card of the Imperial Tarot that falls from Neverless fingers, the Space Marine. His focus is utterly fixed on the Lupercal and his prey.
These cards, why are they just popping into existence and falling out of the decks like this? Like, what's going on?
He steals towards them, leaving one corpse behind in the hope of making another. The Lupercal doesn't notice LEETU barreling towards him, for the Emperor lies at his feet, seemingly on the brink of death. But the Master of Mankind has his own trick to play. The Emperor siphons power from Horus, turning it against his son, The blast drives Horus back, and the Emperor presses his advantage. He's even able to wrench Horus's own weapon, Worldbreaker, from his grasp. For a moment, hope flickers. It doesn't last. Horus regains the upper hand quickly and punishes his father, stripping plate and skin from the Emperor's arm, before driving a finger of his talon through the Emperor's neck. The War Master props the broken body of his father onto a throne and pins him there with 3 pentacles, embedding them deep into flesh and stone alike. "Behold," Horus cries, "the false Emperor!"
Yeah, well done. The Chaos Gods must be celebrating. Like, oh, well done, champion, well done.
The Old Four approve.
So will I deal with all tyrants and deceivers.
Nearby, LEETU approaches in shadow. He knows he is no match for the first found monster of chaos. He is outmatched in this level of warfare. His only hope is to free the Emperor from this cruel binding. But the War Master's presence looms too near. Then, suddenly, a figure comes into view and places himself between his King of Ages and the War Master of Chaos. LEETU has no idea where he came from.
Was it Governor Loken?
But he has bought the Space Marine some time.
By his will alone,
gasps the custodian. Countess Dusk has, for a second or two, distracted the attention of the Lupercal. He has used the only weapon he has left, courage. LEETU can stand with him and die with him, or he can use that distraction and attempt to free the only being who might have a chance to stop the first found. LEETU slips along the tower line of thrones, darting from shadow to shadow, and reaches the Emperor. The Master of Mankind looks dead, his great form desecrated and limp, glazed with gore, his eyes closed. He has been staked to the stone seat with strange, 5-pointed stars that look as though they are made of molten iron. LEETU tries to pull one of them free. It is stuck fast through the Emperor's right thigh, and it burns LEETU's hands to touch it, despite his armored gauntlets. LEETU takes Mornatool and attempts to use the blade as a lever instead. The Emperor does not stir. With a snarl of supreme effort, LEETU yanks the first pentacle free.
Okay, 1 down, 4 more to go.
It clatters aside to the deck like a ring of heated steel, and cold, thick blood oozes sickly from the wound it has left.
Cold, thick blood. Wow. So the Emperor's cold-blooded. No surprise.
Frantically, LEETU starts to prise the star, impaling the left thigh. There's no time left. Countess's defiance of the War Master will be over in another second. LEETU hears the shriek of vile light incinerate the Heteron behind him.
Uh-oh. That means, what's his name? Calcultus has been cooked. Oh.
He feels the backwash of heat. He has wrenched the second pentacle out and cast it aside, freeing the other thigh. He climbs onto the edge of the throne seat to reach the third star that's driven through the Emperor's shoulder. The great figure is bent forward, his head bowed. Blood strings from his split lips and his nose, and mats the long black hair that hangs like a curtain around his face. His left arm is shockingly stripped to the bone from the shoulder, the sleeve of flesh and crumpled armor bunched around his wrist. All life seems extinct.
I can imagine that the pain, you know, all the flesh and bone is, the flesh is gone. It's just the bone exposed like that. Oh gosh.
As absent as it was in the lifeless corpse of his angel son. The third pentacle is the only thing holding him upright in the blasphemous throne. LEETU, his hands cut and bloody from his efforts, starts to draw the third star out. It will not move. "Wake up!" LEETU hisses as he pulls and strains. "Wake up, Emperor! Wake up, great lord! You must wake up now! Wake and rise before it is too late!"
Slap him.
"Your demon son is almost upon you." He tries to use Mornatool as a lever again, hooking it through the hot iron form of the pentacle. He exerts so much force that a shard of the sword blade breaks from a small crack near the hilt. "Wake!" LEETU yells. "Urda sent me to you. She would want you to stand. She needs you to stand." Mornatool's blade begins to bend under the stress. "Wake up!" LEETU barks. He hears the awful shriek of another burst of energy behind him. Flakes of hot ash billow back across him, the throne, and the Emperor.
Okay, I guess Calcatus is now dead.
The third pentacle is beginning to edge free, but it will not come out. The Emperor's blood is all over his hands, his arms, and his chest. "Urda sent me," he shouts. "Urda bid you to stand," and he's in midair suddenly, legs swinging, his torso compressed by a terrible pressure. The first found monster has reached him. It has seized him in its damn talon and plucked him off the throne. The bladed claws are closed around his body.
It's like a toy. A toy in the hands of Horus Lupercal.
Horus holds him up, examining him like a puzzling specimen.
Little toy soldier.
"What are you?" the War Master rumbles up at him. Struggling helplessly against the vice of the talon, LEETU gazes down into the bloodlit face below him. Now he knows fear.
No name to find, Horus muses. No blood to match. Just a number. LEETU. But you spoke a name. Urda. Did she send you here? Did she think she could intervene in this? She will.
LEETU gasps.
She will nothing, Horus responds. She is dead. The Apostle Erebus told me how he had killed her out in that desert place. Her blood is cold, Space Marine, and you have failed in every duty you are asked to perform.
LEETU's murmur of anguish draws laughter from the crowd.
The crowd meaning the Chaos Gods.
Horus shakes his head and then tosses LEETU away with a flick of his talon. He doesn't bother to look where the legionary falls. LEETU lands on his back hundreds of meters away. He is dazed with concussion, and all sound is flat and muffled. Everything is dulled and numb, except his grief. His eyes open. He can see nothing, except an enclosing darkness. He can't move. He begins to make out shapes around him. A high white arch overhead, made of smooth alabaster. A sheer wall to his right, faced in gleaming metal. There is a smell. It's a smell like nothing he's ever known. It is rich and cloying, and unlike any smell in material creation. The unique stink of the deep void, seared meat, hot metal and melter fumes.
What is going on?
Fragrance of madness. The odor of perdition. The smell is suffocating. His focus resolves. The shapes around him unblur. The wall of metal is not a wall of metal. It is the side of an axe blade rested on its edge. The blade is as tall as a mountain precipice. The arch is not an alabaster arch. It is the curve of a moon-white claw, like that of a raptor, curled up from a scaled toe and over onto its tip. He is lying beneath it because the curve of that claw is a kilometer high. It belongs to something.
Wait a minute. Are you in front of one of the Chaos Gods or all four of the Chaos Gods? That's crazy. In such close proximity to them.
There are things around him. Things so impossibly vast, he can only see parts of them. The parts nearest the ground, where they loom over him. He has fallen in among them, like a discarded bone from a feast table. He is lying in their midst, at their feet.
But I don't think they really care about him. He's more like bacteria than any sort of threat to the Chaos Gods. And besides, I think they're very focused on the battle between Horus Lupercal and the Emperor. They're not really going to waste time with LEETU. But the fact that you're so close to them like this, it's shocking. I wonder, how did you get into this position? Huh.
There are 4 of them. One turns its head, 1,000 kilometers above him, and peers down with glazed indifference. There's not even any point screaming. When I read that passage, I had to read it again because that is one of the craziest chapters in any Warhammer 40k book ever. Caecautus Dusk proved himself a true guardian to his King of Ages, making his epic final stand against Horus. The old law of the Horus heresy always suggested that a custodian would stand between the master of mankind's broken body and his traitorous son.
Wow, we've been told that it was a guardsman who stood between Horus and the Emperor, or it was an Astartes that stood between Horus and the Emperor, but now we're told that it was a custodian. Wow.
It is great to see the old law being honoured like that, and Dusk's final stand was one of my favourite moments in the novel. LEETU considers joining the Sentinel here, but correctly deduces that only the Emperor has a chance against the traitor Primarch. His attempt to free his father is a noble effort, but it's not long before the gigantic talon of Horus Lupercal is lifting him into the air. What Horus says to LEETU next is very revealing. Horus doesn't recognise LEETU or even understand what he is, which tells us that even with the War Master's time and reality-bending powers, the fuller details of how the Primarchs and the Space Marines were created is still a mystery to him, and therefore it's likely that not even the Chaos Gods fully understand how the Emperor of Mankind created his sons. Nonetheless, Horus makes it very clear that he was aware of his mother. The fact that he knows Erda existed at all is noteworthy because that's the first time we have had any confirmation in any book that a Primarch was aware of the fact that they had a mother. You can't help but wonder, reading this passage, in the 42nd millennium, do the other traitor Primarchs, or perhaps even Abaddon, know of Erda? The Chaos Gods or Erebus could choose to reveal this hidden knowledge to them. This information alone would be valuable, potentially used to undermine or even sway the remaining loyalist Primarchs. We do get to witness Erda's end in a previous book, Warhawk. Erebus had 4 greater demons first weaken her before the Hand of Destiny took her life with an Athame blade. LEETU, naturally, is devastated upon hearing of his mother's death. We very rarely see Space Marines grieve for their parents or family members in the setting, because most chapters and legions keep Space Marines very detached from their original families. But the main thing that of course sticks out there, it seems like Horus Lupercal basically threw LEETU at Khorne. As LEETU
At Khorne. Oh.
realizes where he is, Khorne appears to lean over and look down at the Space Marine. Quite frankly, there is nothing more terrifying within Warhammer 40k than staring into the eyes of the Blood God. Miraculously though, somehow LEETU survived this encounter. We don't really know how or why LEETU survived this. Maybe the Chaos Gods let him live, maybe he has been corrupted in some way or possessed. There's no sign of that, but it is a possibility. However,
I'm still on the suggestion that, you know, the Chaos Gods don't really care. You know, I mean, it's LEETU, he's a small little bacteria compared to the Chaos Gods. And the Chaos Gods are still focused on the battle between Horus and the Emperor. So, yeah, I think they just don't take interest in LEETU because, you know, he's not one of the main characters in this entire conflict.
I think the point of that passage is potentially to prove the opposite, maybe, which is that perhaps LEETU is uncorruptible. Even the custodians, as we saw today, can have their minds twisted. The Space Marine who can stand that close to the Dark Gods and not be corrupted is probably immune to the predilections of chaos.
I didn't even think about, you know, him being corrupted, being in such close proximity to Khorne. I was thinking that, you know, other demons that are around Khorne have not begun assaulting, you know, attacking LEETU, and then try to possess his body after they kill him, because that's what demons do, you know. Once you are dead, they possess your body.
The next time we see LEETU, he's back in the throne room, but by this point, the battle is over. Horus Lupercal lies dead, and the Emperor on the verge of death himself. The book never explains how LEETU survived this run-in with the ruinous powers, however somehow he made it out. So the idea, I believe, is that once Horus was defeated, he was kind of the anchor pulling the entire realm into the warp, and so with his death, the Chaos Gods were basically sent back, leaving LEETU unharmed. When LEETU returns to the throne room, he is confronted by the aftermath of this devastating battle. The once majestic chamber is now reduced to a scene of ruin and desolation, and filled with the scent of blood and lingering echoes of conflict. The Emperor of Mankind lies mortally wounded on the cold deck, surrounded by his most loyal warriors, Loken, Rogel Dawn, Constantine Valdor, and other custodians. Furthermore, the surviving Blood Angels have found their way to the chamber and are tending to the body of their fallen lord. The Emperor's injuries are catastrophic, far beyond the ability of any known medical science to heal. The atmosphere is heavy with the sense of impending doom as the Emperor's life force ebbs away, and therefore does hope for the Imperium. The custodians have established contact with Terra and are trying to get a teleport extraction, but even now the Vox network is clouded by empiric disruption. LEETU approaches Loken, who is kneeling beside the body of the Emperor, hoping beyond all hope that the Master of Mankind can restore himself. The Lunar Wolf is of course confused about where LEETU has been, and LEETU himself cannot fully understand and explain the horrors he has witnessed.
Yeah, it's a long story. Very, very long story.
I cannot speak of it. I don't know how to describe it. I saw things, Loken. Things I can't explain. I know I should be dead. But then, they all vanished, and I found myself here.
Rogel Dawn, ever wary, eyes the newly arrived Space Marine with caution. However, not only does Loken vouch for him, but LEETU offers up an extremely valuable piece of information to the Primarch. A chamber nearby holds the skull of Ferrus Manus, the fallen Primarch of the Iron Hands. Driven by duty to his brother, Dawn leaves to retrieve the skull. Then it's LEETU who crouches down by the body of the Emperor, and he realizes something that changes the course of the Imperium's history. When the Emperor and Horus fought, they battled across time and space, and it wasn't just a physical conflict, it took multiple forms. One of the more interesting ways they do battle is by using the tarot cards. Horus even has his own deck, which he knows will distract his father.
So what, do they just show each other cards? How do they distract each other with the cards? Interesting, okay.
By the time their epic duel had concluded, these cards were scattered throughout the chamber. And later on, as LEETU crouched down by the Emperor, he realized that although the body of the Master of Mankind was unresponsive, he may still be able to communicate with them through the tarot cards. To the confusion of others around him, LEETU starts picking through debris around the area.
So I guess he's not powerful enough to speak through his custodians like how he did with Cultus.
Searching for the tarot cards.
If he's alive, says LEETU, if there is still hope, then he would tell us what to do. He's done that all along. He can't speak, you idiot,
Valdor says, overhearing and turning back to look at them.
Valdor, why are you so confrontational like that? Come on.
I know, sir, LEETU replies. He bends down to retrieve something.
But he'd show us. If there was a chance, he'd find a way to show us. That's what he does.
LEETU holds out the object he has picked up off the desk. It is a tarot card, the Knight of Mandatio. It is scorched.
Tarot,
Valdor says scornfully.
Wait,
LEETU says.
there are others.
He starts to retrieve more, picking them out of the scree of broken glassic and plastic, and the scraps of ceramite. Cards from the Emperor's Imperial Tarot, lost and scattered during the battle.
Look here,
He says,
here is the Space Marine, and here the Lantern, here the Guardsman, torn in two. Enough of that.
no, the throne, and this one, the world. There are others too, cards from a different deck. The Orphan and the Revenger, the Despoiler. LEETU doesn't say their names, he knows whose deck they come from.
Stop that!
Valdor warns.
So help me, the King of Ages is dying, and you play with cards.
He would show us how, LEETU replies, turning to him.
Calm down, Constantine. Calm down.
If there was a way, he would show us, and these cards are all that's left.
So, what do they tell you then?
Valdor sneers. LEETU looks at the cards he has found. There is no sense to them. If there is a reading here at all, it is poor and incomprehensible. I don't know.
Then damn you. Damn you.
Sure. Constantine.
LEETU nods. The Captain General is right. It was a foolish idea. When the warp was upon them, the magic of Farsight and the Arcana made sense and functioned. But the magic has gone away, and there is nothing left but the cold and the dead metal, where such mystic insight has no power. The cards in his hand are just torn, scorched wafers. They have no meaning, which means the Emperor is silent. He's no longer talking to anyone, in any way. He is too far gone. Dawn has returned, his face set grim. He is carrying something wrapped in a bundle of cloth. He calls over one of the Blood Angels and instructs him to carry it with all reverence.
He was right,
Dawn says to Loken and Valdor.
That man, LEETU. He was quite correct. It was a shrine, an awful place, and Ferris was there. Right about something, then,
sneers Valdor.
He had some notion about cards.
Cards? Asks Dawn.
Tarot cards, Seventh Son. He thought the King of Ages would speak to us and show us how we might best achieve his salvation.
My father set much store by the tarot, Constantine, says Dawn. So did Malkador. You know this.
I know. Malkador is gone,
says Valdor bluntly.
No sigillite magic will save us.
LEETU has found another card. It is lying in the dust beside Kekautus's charred remains.
You are a student of the Arcana then, LEETU.
LEETU looks up. Dawn is standing over him. I believe they mean something, my lord, he replies. What exactly is always open to interpretation. It matters where the spread falls and where they lie.
And where did these cards fall?
Dawn asks. You are a student too? LEETU asks. Dawn shakes his head.
No, never. I don't like them and have never held with them. But Malkador, the regent, he showed me things in the cards. This was a while ago now. He showed me things that have since come true. I did not like them, LEETU, but I can't ignore them. Where did these cards fall?
LEETU holds one out. This one was closest to your father. It was right beside him. I'm sorry, his blood is on it. Dawn takes the card and studies it. The throne. He laughs bleakly.
So, he speaks to us after all. These were his cards, and this is where he wants to go. It never occurred to me. I could not think how we could heal him, for his wounds are beyond repair. But the throne, LEETU, the power of that throne, it would sustain him and fortify him. He could draw strength from the warp and restore his aspect. What else was there?
Several others, says LEETU, but this was the last. It was lodged here, beside the body of his proconsul, who never left his side. So we might suppose the two cards should be placed side by side and read together.
Revelation,
says Dawn, looking at the last card.
They go together indeed, and we have need of revelation now, for the world is blind to us and cannot find us.
He stoops down.
You found it here?
He asks.
Just here, my lord.
Dawn looks at the body. It is so burned away, it is hard to tell it was ever a human figure.
Man. Horus Supercal, like, wow. You didn't just kill that guy, you incinerated the body into non-existence.
Just a few fragments of plate remain, caked in ash. The chest plate, the most substantial and durable part of the Aquilon war gear, is the only thing intact.
He stood by him to the end,
says LEETU.
He stood by him all his life,
says Dawn.
Caecaltus Dusk, at the foot of the throne, day after day.
It's worth remembering that the Primarchs, the Custodians, hell, even the Adeptus Mechanicus, they don't really understand the throne, not like the Emperor does. They don't really know what its purpose is or how it works. That's why it's not immediately obvious to Rogel Dawn and Valdor to put the Emperor's body onto the throne. It's here that we see perhaps the greatest impact LEETU has had on the Warhammer 40k narrative. If the Proto-Astarte hadn't been there to understand the cards, the revelation and the throne, the Emperor would never have been saved, and Terra itself would have been lost. Tragically, Dawn's first assumption is that the Emperor will be able to use the warp on the Golden Throne to essentially restore himself, but that's not how the Golden Throne works. According to Malkador at least, the Master of Mankind will be stabilised, but suspended in a state of undeath, teetering on the edge of life, unborn and yet reborn forever. The hero tells us that what's really important is for the Emperor to stabilise the throne. In this way, the Emperor and the Golden Throne have a reciprocal relationship. Once the throne is stable, the Emperor can keep the Webway portal beneath the Imperial Palace sealed, preventing demons from flooding the birthworld of humanity. Additionally, he can direct the Astronomicon, enabling the ships of the Imperium to navigate the warp. Shortly after LEETU's conversation with Dawn, the Custodians...
Hold on guys, it's raining outside, let me just put up the volume. Okay, alright.
Finally secure a teleport lock, allowing the servants of the Emperor to return to the Imperial Palace. Garvior Loken decides to stay behind to remain with his father's body. Thereafter, Loken is discovered by some of his traitorous brothers, and he proposes a potential path to peace.
What? What do you mean, peace? They are traitors. There's only one thing that we do to traitors, and that is death. They must die. All of them. Can't have people who turn against the Imperium of Man, who worship chaos, and then you want them to come back and, you know, become part of the Imperium again. There's no way. There's no way. They gotta go. Or else they'll start corrupting other people and this entire mess will happen again. No. They gotta go. Gavril Loken, let them go. They must die.
Though they don't seem keen, Erebus decides to take away this possibility entirely. Loken dies with an Athame dagger in his back.
The Hand of Destiny! The Hand of Destiny. The Hand of Destiny, guys. Oh. Wait, hold on guys, just hold on. Okay, I just had to close some doors and windows, making sure that, you know, the rain doesn't get into the house. Okay, let's continue.
LEETU, on the other hand, heads back to Terra with Dawn. We see him one final time in the Horus Heresy series. LEETU waits alone in an anteroom. He is not restrained, but there are interrogations he must submit to by order of the Praetorian. He takes out his old deck and slips into them the new cards he gathered from the burn chamber. They come from two other decks entirely. He sorts them and lays a spread to see if, in their conflicting voices, he can discern some future for himself.
So the other decks of cards are from Horus and the Emperor. Okay.
Or for the world. He turns the first card, the Revenger. That much he knew already. The last card LEETU draws in The End and the Death is the Revenger, A hint, I imagine, at what his storyline will be in the future. In the Warhammer 40k setting, there are, to put it mildly, a lot of bad guys. So, who will be the target of this revenge? The most likely answer is the Hand of Destiny himself, Erebus. The Dark Apostle of the Wordbearers would be hated by both the Emperor and LEETU equally.
Okay, alright. LEETU, if you think you can challenge the Hand of Destiny, go right ahead. Go right ahead. Let's see how far you get. Remember, I said this guy is no pushover. You know, he fought against Khan. And to the best of my knowledge, Khan is one of the most dangerous Astartes, whether loyal or heretic. It doesn't matter. He is one of the most dangerous Astartes you'd ever have to come up against. And Erebus survived through that combat through the skin of his teeth. So, good luck.
Erebus orchestrated the downfall of the Lupercal, starting the Horus Heresy, and he killed LEETU's mother, Ada. Interestingly, LEETU did face Erebus briefly on the walls of the Imperial Palace during the siege. However, at the time, the Proto-Legionary was unaware that Erebus had, not long beforehand, killed his mother. Erebus is quite likely the most hated figure in the entire Warhammer 40k setting. It's really just a joy to hate the character at this point. Having LEETU as the person that might one day deal the death blow to Erebus would be incredibly satisfying. And
yeah, good luck. You're gonna need it. Because he doesn't fight alone. He summons demons. And you have to find him first as well. And he also has his own retinue of wordbearers, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, good luck.
Would no doubt make him one of the most beloved characters within the entire canon. Whilst Erebus is the most likely target in my opinion, the Emperor could well be planning to direct LEETU against another foe, as the Master of Mankind has no shortage of enemies. The card, the Revenger, might even carry deeper, broader implications. It's possible that he will continue to serve as some sort of covert agent of the Emperor, operating outside of the Imperium, eliminating targets as directed by the Emperor's Tarot. Another intrigue.
So he would be something like an Inquisitor mixed with a Official Assassinorum, type of person. Okay, wow.
Aspect of LEETU's story is his blade, the power sword Mornitool. This weapon carries a tragic history. Originally, the sword belonged to Horus Aximand, better known as Little Horus, who, like Loken, was one of the 4 members of the Mournival. Unlike Loken, however, Little Horus joined their father in treachery, and used Mornitool to slay another member. But Torgadon's death would not go unavenged, as Loken would later claim Little Horus's head himself during the Saturnine Gambit. Loken then takes possession of the blade until he chucks it to LEETU in the Inevitable City. Mornitool is therefore far more than just a tool of war. It embodies the pain and betrayal that has defined the Horus Heresy from its inception.
But it's chipped. The sword is chipped in some places because of how LEETU was using it to leverage, to pull out the rods that were, keeping the Emperor in a throne chair, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, it's a bit chipped, meaning, over time, the more he uses it against more powerful enemies, it might actually shatter. Yeah. Hopefully he knows how to reforge a sword.
As far as we know, LEETU keeps this sword at the end of the book, and it's hard not to see the symbolism here. By the end of the novel, Loken has been killed by Erebus, and Abaddon remains the sole surviving member of the Mournival, making Mornitool a powerful relic of this bygone era. The blade ties the entire story together, creating a full circle moment that harkens back to the earliest days of the heresy. Just as Loken took revenge on Little Horus, so too do I believe that LEETU will take revenge against the man who killed his mother, Erebus. LEETU is the Revenger. As we draw towards the end of this analysis of LEETU, I feel it's prudent to remind you that this character's name is derived from the serial code LEETU, which itself comes from the name Limited Edition 2 from when Games Workshop first marketed the model in 1985. It's amazing to me how this massive storyline evolved from the idea of introducing a character for a throwback to an old Warhammer model. But what's truly incredible is that despite its tongue-in-cheek origins, LEETU's story is fascinating and moving. His history provides us with a unique insight into the forces of the Imperium and Chaos, even offering us new information into the Emperor.
Yeah, definitely, the storyline with LEETU is a very good addition in the Warhammer 40k universe, definitely. And I like the fact that they've incorporated this character all the way from the 1988, toy editions into the books like this, because someone like this, who is in between the Thunder Warriors and the development of the Astartes and the Primarchs, is very important. It's really, really, really important. Because he is, you could say, the progenitor of all Astartes, and also one of the foundation blocks for the creation of the Primarchs. So definitely a very important character. He's not special in terms of him having abilities like psychic abilities. Like he's not a psyker. He's not a giant compared to the Primarchs. He's not super strong compared to the Primarchs, so he kind of seems like average, like all the other Astartes, essentially. But he has this grit about him. He has this tenacity about him, and this never give up attitude, and always finding a way to solve a situation. And he's loyal. He has a good heart. He loves his brothers, although they don't say it to each other, or LEETU has the chance or the time to say it to his brothers that he loves them and he respects them, but he cares for them. This is the closest thing to family the Primarchs will ever have. Not so much with the Emperor, but with LEETU. This is a sibling that they will always have. And yeah, he's an important character, definitely. We need to see more of him in the 41st or 42nd millennium, definitely. Wait a minute. How is he immortal? I wonder, is he immortal, or are they going to give him some chemical injections to sustain his life? I'm not sure about that, but yeah. Hopefully he'll be with us for a very long time.
Importantly, I found myself really rooting for this character. Over the course of the final novel, LEETU develops this fear that he is of little use to the Emperor in the battle versus Horus, only to have this fear confirmed and then magnified tenfold as War Master Horus Lupercal brutally wrenches him up off the floor, declaring that LEETU has failed in every duty he was assigned, and informing him that even his mother has been killed. I found it heartbreaking to think that after centuries of protecting his mother in their careful exile, once Erebus found her, LEETU wasn't there to protect her. Even still, LEETU's role in the Siege of Terra really cannot be overstated. Without LEETU, there would have been some big mistakes. The Emperor might have ascended to godhood and killed everyone.
He's still going to do that. He is still going to do that.
Emperor wouldn't have been put onto the Golden Throne, which would have probably led to his death and the loss of humanity's birth world. And ultimately, without LEETU, the Argonauts group would have certainly been slaughtered, and some of them go on to become pivotal to the setting. Acte was found buried alive by Rogal Dawn. She was freed and realised her mind had melded with one of the survivors of Kauth, Katerina Moriana. Taking on Kat's name, she played a vital role in the final days of the siege by sending out a psychic message to rally the Emperor's servants. Her words began a chant that helped relight the Astronomicon, aiding the Emperor in the final hour versus Horus.
Man, this lady Act 2 was really something. Very unique, very powerful. And she was sent by Erda, right? Wow.
John and Ol also had further parts to play. After parting with the Emperor, Ol discovered that the Master of Mankind's immense power had restored his shattered Athame blade. This was the weapon the Emperor needed to defeat Horus, so they contacted Acte to help get a bearing and then used the knife to burst into the Lupercal court.
Oh, okay. So, Horus was killed by a stab with the blade? I thought he was destroyed or killed by the Emperor, when he used that soul erasure technique to destroy Horus completely, not just physically but also spiritually, or his soul just erased from existence. I thought that's how the Emperor killed him. Okay.
John managed to briefly stun Horus with a word of Enuncia, and Ol was able to place the knife into the Emperor's gigantic palm. Ol died valiantly, defending the Emperor's body, and later on, the Master of Mankind did indeed use the knife to kill his son.
Oh wow, alright, so, what's his name again? Olna's person, sacrificed his life at that very moment to give the Emperor some time. Okay, wow.
John survives, however, having been persuaded by Ol to flee in order to complete their mission. When we last see him, he's using a feather of Sanguinius and some thread that had been given by LEETU to navigate space and time and ensure that everything that was done stays done. Even Ingo Peck's fate remains an intriguing question at the end of the heresy. Who knows what path the first captain of the Alpha Legion will take in the future? All of these stories
isn't he supposed to be a traitor? But okay.
Are fascinating and will no doubt get their own videos in the future. Ultimately, if LEETU hadn't protected the Argonauts, given the thread, provided the knowledge to Rogel Dawn, who knows what awful fate might have befallen the Imperium of Man. Given this incredible story so far, one question you might still have is perhaps, is there an LE1? As I mentioned before, the books do not specify as to whether there were any other Proto-Astartes, but when it comes...
But like I said, I think the first LE, or limited edition 1, was probably a failed experiment. The gene seed in that LE1 probably was malfunctioning, or he went berserk and he killed himself, or the body just exploded due to genetic abnormalities, mutations occurring, and then yeah.
To the models, LE1 was actually the first space orc.
What? Oh, okay.
The first Space Orc did indeed come before the first Space Marine, further evidence to the generally accepted notion that Orcs is the best. Given the popularity of the character LEETU, it would be exciting to see an Orc named LE1 confront LE2 in a future story.
Oh yes please, I would want to see something like that.
You might have noticed in 40k lore before that sometimes Orcs refer to Space Marines as Beakies, and LEETU really is the original Beaky. Though the Mark VI Corvus armor would later make widespread use of the classic pointed Space Marine helmets, this mark of armor was of course heavily inspired by the original LE2 design. To me, LEETU is the godfather of all pointy helmeted Marines. Which takes me on to the final topic of today's video: will we see the Space Marine LEETU in the current 40k timeline? The lifespan of the Astartes has long been a topic of discussion by both characters within the 40k universe and its fans.
Yeah, I don't really know how long Space Marines can live for. I think I was told that it's at least more than 1,000 years, at least. in the 1,000 years range of existence. But others also tell me that they can live for as long as no one kills them. Like they don't suffer any mortal damage that results in death. So they can live indefinitely, essentially. So I'm not sure.
During the Horus Heresy, it was stated that Astartes are immortal, but at the time, no Space Marine had lived for very long. Chapter Master Dante, on the other hand, shows visible physiological effects of aging, and although the salamander Gravius survived for 10,000 years, the effects upon his mind and body were substantial. LEETU, however, is different due to his unique and theoretically purer gene seed, which could grant him a longer lifespan than standard Astartes. Both his parents are literal perpetuals, so he might have inherited this trait himself. Even without these genetic advantages, the writers could utilize the many ways time can be manipulated in the 40k universe to prolong LEETU's story.
Like, for instance, if LEETU was trapped in the warp, and it took him time to get out of it, but the moment where he exits out of the warp, almost 10,000 years have passed by, something like that. Yeah, I mean, it happens. People get lost in the warp, and the moment when they exit out of the warp, they could be far into the future or far in the past, and yeah, these things happen.
The most obvious example is the warp. If LEETU has spent time within the Sea of Souls, time outside might have passed quicker for him. It doesn't even have to be the warp itself. The inevitable city visited within this video was turned into the City of Dust by the Emperor as he tore through it with his immense power. This City of Dust later became the base of operations for Constantine Valdor after the heresy. This topic has been discussed at length on this channel.
Oh, so that's where Constantine is right now. Okay. The City of Dust.
Valdor shows little patience for Erda's legionary aboard the Vengeful Spirit. However, Valdor is noticeably short with everyone after his King of Ages falls.
Yeah, that was something very surprising, to hear Constantine Valdor speak like that. I mean, he's always so calm and collected and just methodical in the way he speaks, and yes, there are times where his anger does show itself, but it's very, very rare, so yeah, it was very interesting to hear him talk like that to LEETU. Wow.
Given his deep connection to the Emperor, it wouldn't be surprising if Dan Abnett explores a deeper link between Valdor and LEETU in future stories. The End and the Death novels are littered with connections to the Bequin series, and Abnett clearly intends to continue the heresy story within the final Bequin novel, Pandemonium. Will we see LEETU being brought in as a servant for the King in Yellow? Another option, I think, for LEETU's character in the future is going to be connecting him more to Rogel Dawn. At some point, Rogel Dawn will return to the Warhammer 40k setting.
Really? I thought he's dead. I thought they only found his gauntlet or his hand, after his battles in the warp, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, okay. Rogel Dawn, you're coming back.
As the Lion and Gilliman have. Black Library will therefore have to explain where has he been for the last 10,000 years. The disappearance of the 7th Primarch is probably the most mysterious disappearance out of all of the Primarchs, in my opinion. We really don't have any idea why Rogel Dawn kind of abandoned the Imperium, why he's abandoned his sons, and that's not to say he's not serving any purpose. We just don't really know what that purpose is.
I'm thinking he was abducted. Like how Jagatai Khan was also abducted by, I think it was... Wait, was it? What, was he abducted? But he's somewhere in the webway. Yes, Jagatai Khan is somewhere in the webway. He's lost in there. We don't know when will he ever come back. In terms of Rogel Dawn, probably it's the kind of the same situation where he's lost in the warp, and it'll take him time to come back. Yeah, I don't think he's intentionally running away from his legion and running away from his responsibilities as a Primarch. I mean, this is Rogel Dawn. You know, he is the Praetorian of Terra. There's no way that he would just walk away from his responsibilities.
Can't help but feel that maybe the Emperor is able to communicate with Rogel Dawn using the tarot, and certainly Rogel Dawn is going to try and connect to his father on the Golden Throne. One thing that is definitely missing from The End and the Death Volume 3, or something that we thought would happen, the Emperor never gives any final instructions to Rogel Dawn. He doesn't tell Rogel Dawn what to do with the Golden Throne, as we saw. The only way he can communicate with Dawn is through the tarot, and LEETU, having been trained in how the tarot work by Erda herself, potentially possesses an invaluable skill set to the Praetorian. Dawn is well accustomed to working with Space Marines from non-loyalist legions, as evidenced by his collaborations with Garvey Orlokan, Nathaniel Garrow and others throughout the Heresy. And it would be interesting to see this continue, with LEETU acting as the key, allowing Rogel Dawn to essentially communicate with his father. Moreover, a small detail about LEETU introduced in the book Warhawk is his love of drawing. This talent might allow him to perhaps add tarot cards to his deck in the future. If you're a follower of this channel, you'll probably know that I'm also interested in another Primarchless Space Marine, Alpha Primus. I've covered his story in depth before, link in the description, but I wanted to briefly revisit Alpha Primus.
Alpha Primus. Okay. Alpha Primus. Primaris Space Marine? Yes. Yes. Okay.
Especially since he shares some similarities with LEETU. LEETU was a prototype for the Space Marines, while Alpha Primus is a prototype for the Primaris Space Marines. LEETU protected his mother Erda, whereas Alpha Primus serves as the personal enforcer of Archmagus Dominus Belisarius Cawl. Some might even speculate that Alpha Primus and LEETU are the same character.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Let them be separate characters.
However, this doesn't seem to be the case. Primus is covered in scars and has a mixture of skin tones, suggesting that Cawl may have literally stitched him together from multiple bodies. Furthermore, a key
That is nasty.
aspect of Primus's character is that Cawl is at least in part his father, which is not a change I think the writers would make for LEETU's story.
Like, imagine now LEETU has what's her name again? Erda as his mother, Neoth as his father, and Belisarius Cawl as his stepfather or something. No, guys.
What?
Let there be at least one child in this entire family that doesn't have a step something. You know, let him be the original. It's fine.
What's compelling though is that, like LEETU, Alpha Primus doesn't hail from any single legion, nor does he have a single Primarch. However, unlike LEETU, who is a more straightforward prototype, Alpha Primus is a hybrid, potentially drawing genetic material from multiple, if not all, Primarchs. The novels make it clear that he possesses far more abilities than a standard Space Marine. So the question is, does LEETU have any unique abilities bestowed upon him as a result of his parents being the Emperor and Erda? We've seen Erda wield immense psychic power in the book Warhawk, where she takes on multiple greater demons at once. However, despite LEETU's impressive knowledge of the Arcana, there is little evidence so far to suggest he is a Psyker. We also can't really ignore the fact that both of LEETU's parents are Perpetuals. Perhaps that's going to be LEETU's new role, to become a new Perpetual Space Marine, which would go some way to explaining how he escaped his close call with the Chaos Gods largely unscathed. One of the lines in the novels that made me think there might be more to LEETU is from Alanius Person. He suggests that LEETU was made by the Emperor as a gift for Erda.
Instead of flowers and chocolates and champagne, something romantic. No, I'm gonna give you a kid. Oh, that is crazy. Okay, wow.
What kind of gift would Neoth make, I wonder? In the Inevitable City, we see the Emperor is able to channel his power through his warriors. For example, Loken temporarily wields a fraction of the Emperor's strength.
Yeah, I mean, he does that now in the 42nd millennium, making saints out of sisters of battle and, children, having a slither of his power too, and they become saints. And yeah, he does this all the time.
If the unique connection he and LEETU share means that the Emperor can still do this from the Golden Throne of Terra. When looking at the Loyalist Primarchs, the writers have confirmed that each son of the Emperor will wield a weapon from the Master of Mankind's armory. It would be awesome to see this extended to LEETU, the Emperor's other son as it were, and allow this Space Marine to wield one of the Emperor's weapons or even some of his godlike power.
I don't know if I want to see him have that sort of upgrade. I think it's fine the way he is right now. He's not too special. He's not too normal. He is the Dark Horse. He is separate from the main storylines centered around the Primarchs and the Astartes. He already has a unique skill in terms of reading the tarot cards, and let us see him develop a new type of system based on the tarot cards, and him able to use it on the battlefield in some sort of way. I don't know. I just don't want him to be, too close to the Primarchs and being favored by the Emperor. Now, we don't want him in that mess. We don't want him in that mess. We don't want some sort of favoritism, squabbling to be happening between the Primarchs and LEETU. I want him to be present, but also not to be too close to the main family. Yeah, I think that would work.
Despite all of this theorizing, however, I must admit, I do like the idea of LEETU being a relatively unremarkable Space Marine in terms of his abilities.
Yes.
I think of him as basically a Grey Knight, but without their connection to the warp. His knowledge of the tarot alone gives him a unique edge over others.
Yes.
And given how accurate the tarot is in the 42nd millennium since the opening of the Great Rift, he would be an immense asset to any force in the Imperium.
Yes.
But really, I think what I like the most is that LEETU is just the Space Marine. And that's not my opinion. In the Emperor's battle vs Horus, the Master of Mankind has LEETU represented by the card, the Space Marine. That is how his father sees him. One of my favourite LEETU moments occurs in the final novel when he's hiding in the shadows, trying to decide how to aid his father against Horus before Kekautus Dusk appears to protect his lord. LEETU's hesitant to throw himself in, but I don't think it's fear that stops him. I think he's just conscious of the oath he has to fulfill, and in fact, he's literally just deciding how best to spend his life. He really is the Space Marine. When I was thinking about this and how the Emperor views LEETU, I couldn't help but think back to some of the Emperor's most famous words, and I wondered if, when he spoke them, he was actually thinking about his first son. They shall be my finest warriors, these men who give of themselves to me. Like clay I shall mould them, and in the furnace of war I shall forge them. They shall be of iron will and steely sinew. In great armour I shall clad them, and with the mightiest weapons shall they be armed. They will be untouched by plague or disease. No sickness shall blight them. They shall have such tactics, strategies, and machines that no foe will best them in battle. They are my bulwark against the Terra. They are the defenders of humanity. They are my Space Marines, and they shall know no fear. With the final shreds of his godhood, the Emperor of Mankind was able to restore LEETU and his allies, and he did this for a purpose. I think LEETU has a grand role yet to be fulfilled. I hope you enjoyed this video on the first Space Marine, LEETU. I found myself really rooting for this character. He has a kindness about him in the novels that's almost Salamander-esque, and I cannot wait to see what they do in the future with the Emperor's goodest boy. I hope Black Library has big plans for him, and more than anything, I hope he gets some revenge on Erebus, as I'm sure we all do. That wraps up this video. It was a long video and it took a lot of time to put together, so if you enjoyed it and want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing. If you're interested in extra content, including a full breakdown of the Emperor's fight against Horus, you can join the channel, which also grants you access to our Discord community. I'm really excited to read the comments section on this video. There's so much to theorize about in terms of LEETU's role in the future, what happens during the end and the death, and of course, who would the Emperor of Mankind expect LEETU to take revenge on. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Alright guys, that is it. That is it with the first Space Marine, the Emperor's true son, who defied 4 Chaos Gods, made on the Sandman of Terra YouTube channel and requested by your RJ6D. Your RJ6D, thank you very much for this request. Really, I did not know about this character, LEETU, the first Space Marine. And like I've said before, I've heard so many stories about the Siege of Terra, or the Horus Heresy, or the unification of Terra under the Emperor's Imperium of Man, and also, you know, stories within the 42nd millennium or the 41st millennium. And LEETU has not popped up. So, you know, this has got to be like the first time for me to finally have information about this particular Astartes, who is the proto Astartes or progenitor Astartes for all the Astartes that would come after. And really, this was an important piece of information that needed to be highlighted. So thank you, your RJ6D, for the request. It's been really good. Sandman of Terra as well, thank you for the information that you've compiled on the limited edition LEETU, yeah. Really interesting character. And yeah, he was very loyal to his mother Erda. He was loyal to his father somewhat. Yeah, somewhat. He was somewhat loyal to his father. I'm not sure if he was loyal to humanity, like how the other Astartes have been programmed to be loyal to humanity, loyal to their Primarchs, and loyal to the Imperium of Man. But LEETU was loyal to his mother Erda. He was loyal to his father. Not sure about the Imperium of Man as a whole. Yeah, not really sure about that. But also, you know, the fact that LEETU contributed however he could in the fight between Horus Supercow and the Emperor. That was also quite interesting to know about. And the fact that he also realized that he did not have the sort of power or oomph behind him to actually challenge you know, Horus Supercow in a, you know, one-on-one battle like the Emperor. He had to wait. He had to see when there would be an opening. He also you know, tried to help the Emperor when he was you know, well, yeah, those nails that were stuck in his flesh and coming out onto the rock chair. Or was it a rock chair? Was a chair made out of stone? Yeah, like a stone chair. Yes, rock chair. Sorry about that. But yeah, the fact that, you know, LEETU you know, thought outside the box in terms of how is he going to deal with Horus Supercow, because he cannot face up against him directly. That's suicide. And he had backup, of course, from Calcatus, from Gabriel Loken, in order to fight against Horus Supercal and help the Emperor however they could. Yes, it may not have been truly enough, but whatever they have done has contributed in the end. And also the fact that LEETU was defending the body of Sanguinius. That's also a very good thing that he did there, because if those scavenger mutated creatures consumed the body of Sanguinius, we don't know, what would be left for the blood angels to collect. Probably nothing. Maybe the bones, like how Ferrus Manus' skull was kept on board the vessel that Horus Supercal had in his possession. He also had the skull of Ferrus Manus in his altar room. I'm not sure what it was on the Vengeful Spirit, but yeah, luckily LEETU really made sure that the body of Sanguinius would not be further tarnished by these creatures, and the blood angels could take their father back home to Baal and give him a proper send-off, if I can say that. I know that his body is encased in some sort of stasis field or some sort of crystal structure, so the body will never decay. It will just stay as it is. So at least the blood angels can see their father, and they can see their father as he was when he was alive. Yeah, and that's good. That's very good. Future plans for LEETU. Yeah, like Sandman of Terra has just stated, he can try and get his revenge on the Hand of Destiny. Many have tried. Many have tried. He will not be the first, and certainly he will not be the last. But if LEETU is the one to finally bring an end to the Hand of Destiny, it will be, a very interesting, story to know about or to read about, and it will be galactic changing, because the Hand of Destiny is one of the most, successful agents of chaos. Truly, one of the most successful. No one has been able to do what he's been able to accomplish. And if LEETU is the one to finally put an end to this, threat to the Imperium of Man, I think there'll be a bit more peace and reconciliation in the galaxy in terms of what has happened in the past with the traitor Astartes and the loyalist forces. At least we'll be closing that chapter of that book with the death of Erebus. But like I said, good luck. It might not happen because this is Erebus and he can teleport. So yeah, good luck. Yeah, guys, I guess that's it. That is it with LEETU Limited Edition LE2, made on the Sandman of Terra YouTube channel, the first Space Marine, the Empress true son who defied the 4 Chaos Gods. Remember, if you want to check out the original video as well as the Sandman of Terra YouTube channel, the links are going to be in the description below. If you like my reaction, please give me a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos. And thank you again to your RJ6D for the request. It's been really good. And that's it, guys. Bye bye.